Marie and Josh, what surgery did your son Max ultimately have as part of his cancer treatment?
So the surgery is called rotationplasty.
Mhm.
It's a surgery where his tumor was removed in the middle part of his leg around his knee, and then lower portion of his leg is reattached to the upper portion of his leg and rotated 180 degrees. And
Mm,
so now his ankle acts as his knee.
interesting. Yeah, so I did post another I did have Hendo on who
Mhm.
also has the same thing,
Uh,
and what's interesting is, I'm 40 now, and Hendo and Max are the first 2 kids that I've ever seen that procedure done. Has that been do you know if it's been around for a while or
So the interesting thing about Hindo is it's the same surgery by name,
Yeah,
but their paths and uh, their situations were very different.
yeah,
And we can talk more about that. But the surgery has been around for a long time. We've met
has it? Okay.
folks who had it 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Interesting.
It's more common now than it had been in the past, but it's been
Mhm.
around for a long time.
Okay. So his essentially in summary, his foot's on backwards
Yeah.
and it's fully functional.
Yeah.
He can move everything.
Wiggle his toes,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the interesting questions that I asked Hendo, and I'm curious if you know this about Max, but when he wiggles his 2 big toes, does it feel the same?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd have to ask, right?
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think that topic has ever come. I've never thought to ask him that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
me either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just, an interesting and Hendo said yes, it feels the same, and I wonder if it's, like, maybe the muscle memory is there like, he's just got used to it, and then, like, somebody else in the comments asked, like, when he moves his foot backwards, the other one technically moving backwards is the other way, and so you know, Hendo says that feels the same, but he doesn't know how to equate that, so it's just kinda interesting.
Yeah.
One of the one of the first things after Max's surgery that they try to have him do was wiggle his toes and then move that joint. And
Mm,
so we were telling Max, "Hey, move your ankle," and he was struggling, having a difficult time. So his Achilles is attached to his quadricep.
yeah.
And so finally, a doctor walked in and saw us having this discussion. She was like, "No, no, no, no. Tell him to move his knee because the
Oh, no
quadricep
way.
and the
Mhm.
hamstring needs to fire to move that joint now." So once he thought about moving his knee, he fired the correct muscles and then the joint moves.
So it sounds like it's a different muscle then from Hendo.
So Henry's um, path to rotation plasty was from a congenial
Yeah,
condition that he had.
right,
So PFFD has a new name that escapes the mind, but essentially, those kids have no femur or a very small femur.
right.
Okay, so he has his full tibia, whereas Max, some of his tibia and some of his femur was taken out,
Yeah.
and then the tibia and femur are joined together.
Uh,
Whereas his hendo's the top of his tibia, is up near his hip joint.
yeah,
So it's a little different. I don't know the details of what muscles were, salvaged and reconstructed
yeah.
in Henry's situation.
But
But
Max has to fire his knee in
his
order for his foot to function,
right, he
or
think
his
his
amputator is like reversed foot.
right, it's going to be his quadriceps and his hamstrings that he's manipulating or thinking about moving to move that joint. It's not,
Can you get a little closer?
yeah,
Like, pull it closer rather?
it's not move your ankle, it's move that knee joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And
Move the knee joint.
once the physical therapist came in and worked with him, literally, I got it on video. It was less than 5 minutes, and he ignited that, and still have it on video, and
Oh,
I sent it to Josh. He wasn't in the hospital because it was a really frustrating point with us
yeah,
because, we chose this surgery for a reason, and once the physical therapist worked with him, we're like, "Oh my gosh, he got it," It
yeah,
was a
yeah.
really frustrating point with us, but
Interesting.
we really got it. We talked to the doctor, the physical therapist came in, and he got it right away, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Mhm.
We'll get more into his journey. How old was Max when it happened, and how old is he now?
He was 10 when he was diagnosed and when he had his surgery, and he is 12 now. He'll be 13 in March.
Okay. Repeat those ages one more time.
10,
10
and he's 12 now.
and 12 now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's a fairly new injury as well. So and we're gonna get into adaptive sports as well, and how that I would imagine helped him through and all that. So, um, let me ask you, for someone meeting you both for the first time, who are you? Marie was just talking about how she's private and all that, so it's like
Uh, I mean, I'm who are we? I don't know. I mean, we're parents to Will and Max. We're private people. You know, you ask how we felt coming on this podcast, if we're nervous. I don't think I'm nervous, but I'm not on social media at all.
yeah,
Um, I think Max's diagnosis has definitely defined us as a family.
yeah, sure.
I'm gonna try not to cry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we're a married couple who are the parents of two awesome kids.
yeah,
I think you know, being in this disability community, and I try to avoid using that word, especially around Max, because I don't want him to feel disabled, right?
mm,
So try not to describe ourselves as parents of a disabled child. We're parents of two kids,
okay,
right?
yeah,
Trying to figure this whole thing out.
mhm,
And I
yeah,
think it also has to do with our other son too, this has affected him a lot as well.
yeah,
I think more than a lot of people realize,
yeah,
and it still does.
yeah,
I don't think a lot of his friends, a lot of, some teammates that he has know that Max had cancer.
mm,
Um, and I don't he's not embarrassed about it at all, but I think it's just hard for him to talk about.
yeah,
Um, because, Max just hit his 2-year remission mark, which is in the osteosarcoma world is a huge benchmark,
yeah,
but we still have a long way to go.
yeah,
5 years is survivorship, and
uh,
that's what we want to get to.
mm,
So, we're not out of the woods.
yeah, yeah,
And that's always in the back of our mind.
mm,
So I just really try to, when we have two fantastic, rambunctious boys who are incredibly smart, really have patience every day with them. And so, um, you know, um, I don't know. I just really want to just make sure that every day is the best for both of them because we still have a long way to go when it comes to Max,
yeah,
and I don't want to forget Will.
yeah,
Um, so that's who we are. I just
yeah,
really define us as we just try to do our best every day as a family and try not to have this diagnosis define us because there's a lot more to our family than that.
mhm,
Um, and so yeah, that's I don't know. So
yeah. I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
That it's yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like to have a son that goes through something like that and having to watch that and kinda, it's almost out of your control, you know?
Yeah, as parents, we do everything to you do everything to protect your child.
Mhm.
And how can you protect your child from cancer? You can't.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
you could get sick. You can, you know, give them some antibiotics or
Yeah.
Tylenol
Right.
or a warm blanket,
Right.
right? You get a diagnosis like this. It's pretty frustrating because you're on the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of there's nothing you can do. You can't give your son or your daughter chicken noodle soup
Right.
to get them through, a severe diagnosis.
Right. Right. Marie, can you move the this part and just point it a little bit more at you? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
perfect. Thank you. No, no, it's okay. And then can you explain how we know each other?
Wow. How do we know each other?
I have no idea. It's a mystery.
So after Max was coming out of treatment, out of chemo, and he's, getting back to living his life. Um, before his diagnosis and surgery, he was very active, right? Lots
Mm,
of sports, loved to go outside, dig in the dirt, find bugs, right? So
yeah,
how do we get back to some of that? And so started looking for sports, right?
yeah.
I found Danny in the bridge, right? I
Mm,
reached out to the bridge, sent him an email or filled out their contact form. I don't remember the specifics. And Danny like called me immediately,
oh,
which is awesome, right? I mean, the bridge and the work that they do is amazing, and it's a gem for this city, right?
mhm,
I would put you in that category, and I'll get
mhm,
to that. So Danny's awesome. Danny reached out and said, "Hey, what are you looking to do? What are you trying to do? What are you into?" And we talked about all the things that they do. We talked about adaptive sports. We talked about a bunch of different things. In parallel, I was Googling, hey, Max was a soccer player. So, hey, amputee soccer, right?
mm,
I found that Max was a tennis player. I started searching tennis.
mm,
Um, Somehow I had stumbled upon um, Dave and Kendra and their
yep.
triathlon journeys. I dabbled in the sport in my early 30s.
Oh, cool.
So we were living in California at the time. There was a place nearby, like within 5 miles, that held triathlon. So I picked up the sport.
Yeah,
So when I ran across that, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Max was a swimmer,
yeah,
right? All this stuff. So I think just finding these people in the community who promote and participate and facilitate adaptive sports.
yeah.
Um, Max playing tennis, right?
Mhm.
Um, Getting linked up with Kendra, talking to Danny. At some point, your name came up,
Yeah,
and wheelchair and parastanding tennis came up, and I think that's how we got linked up.
yeah, yeah. It was. In how long, let's say after the rotationplasty, did you email the bridge?
So he had surgery in July, and I think I was talking to Danny in December or January of 24. So December of
Wow.
23, January
Mhm.
24, because he finished chemo the beginning of December. And there's some recovery time, right?
Yeah.
There's weeks to months of recovery, right? You're
Mhm.
just worn out. It's a very brutal treatment process,
Yeah.
very taxing. And so it took him a while to recover. When he went back to school, he had a teacher who had a couch in her classroom, and he would
Oh.
take a nap every day for like an hour.
Oh, wow.
He so it took him a while to recover. So, but I tried to get ahead of it. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
let's get on with our lives. Let's get Max active again. So I tried to reach
Mhm.
out as soon as we came up for breath after the treatment, right? Just
Mhm.
being in the hospital week after week after week.
Yeah.
It's all inpatient treatment. We were in the hospital more than we were home.
Yeah.
And so once we broke out of that phase, it's like, hey, let's find something. Let's get active.
Right.
So he started um he started playing amputee soccer first, maybe in March or April of
Yeah.
24.
Yeah, it was pretty early after he finished chemo.
And then I think he started playing tennis with you that summer or fall,
Yeah.
maybe August of
Yeah.
24.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
not too long,
Yeah.
but like, he didn't have his prosthetic then, so he started in the wheelchair with you. And
Mhm.
then once he got his prosthetic, he's kind of integrated some more standing activities.
Yeah. So he's doing with me, he's doing parastanding tennis and wheelchair tennis as
Right.
well.
Right.
So, pretty cool. He's the only kid that I have doing both.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's awesome. W One of the things that I just wanna mention is I've had Jake on my podcast. I've
Mhm.
had Mozzie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had, Kendra,
Mhm.
right? A bunch of
Mhm.
other disabled people, and most of them got injured early on in
Mhm.
life and didn't find wheelchair sports till years later.
Mhm.
And so, when I heard about this, I was grateful that you guys reached out because wheelchair sports made such a impact on my life. I mean, sports in general on anybody's life. I can imagine being a huge impact, but then being exposed to the disabled community and meeting like Hendo, who has a very similar condition, right?
Mhm, mhm.
It just kind of you you kind of see like it helps you get through that phase of like, oh man, my life is altered
Yeah, yeah.
in what a lot of people would consider a very negative way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's great that you had the foresight to think I got to get my kid and back into to sports and be more active and stuff like that. When like Jake got injured when he was really young and didn't find wheelchair sports until 18, 19 years old or something like that.
Yeah,
So
you and I have kinda talked about this a bit, and I think there's a couple factors there, right? I think availability of programming
yeah,
is vastly different now,
yeah,
right? And
so
so
true.
if you're a younger person now, that's a great advantage that you get,
Yeah,
right? Like when Jake was 10 or 12 years old, the bridge wasn't around,
right.
right? There probably wasn't wheelchair tennis at CTF, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's a big factor.
Yeah,
I think about this a lot actually, and I think part of it is, Max was playing sports and athletic, and so that was kind of on the mind. It's like,
yeah.
hey, when we get out of this, let's see what's available to keep him active.
Mhm.
If you have a child or if you're a person who has an injury or a surgery or an amputation at a young age, maybe you never got into sports at a young
Mhm.
age, right?
Mhm.
And so whether that's a consequence of socioeconomic issues, social issues, whatever it is, um, I think in our particular situation, Max was active before his amputation, so
Mhm.
we wanted to get him active after.
Mhm.
So along with the accessibility and the programming available, just having that mindset, it just worked out that way, right?
Mhm.
I don't think yeah, I don't know.
No, no, it's okay.
And, I don't know if we're gonna get into this later, but we had a couple surgery options for Max and, rotationplasty, was the choice that Max ultimately made,
Yeah.
along with, discussions that we had with him.
Mhm.
And, with that option in mind and that choice was, the lifestyle that, he wanted to have and that we wanted him to have for the rest of his life. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that goes along with his physical activity and sports as well. So
Yeah.
that is one reason for the surgery option that was chosen
Yeah, okay. If we weren't here in studio, where would you be?
today.
Mhm.
Probably home
What
watching soccer or the
the
Olympics.
Olympics?
There you go, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize the Olympics were on right
Yeah.
now, huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny, I mean, I have a day job, and most of the time, you hear it through the at the water cooler, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And oh, interesting,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Um, if you could master this is kind of another light question, if you could master one skill overnight, what would it be?
Me personally,
Mhm.
being a better cook for our family.
Ah!
I'm an okay cook, but
She's a great cook. She's a great
I
cook.
would love to be better,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 growing boys at home that just eat constantly.
Yeah.
I would love to be a better cook.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, man.
What specifically what do you have a style of cooking or
No, no, anything. Just,
okay.
I don't know, make it more flavorful, make it more fun, make it more I don't know,
You're
just
a great cook.
I just wanna be better. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I enjoy spending time in the kitchen, so I just wanna be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I put my audiobook in, I just wanted to do it and yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm.
I hate cooking,
Mhm.
but I love grilling and smoking meat.
Oh, yeah.
That's like I don't know, it's, I
I
guess
would
I'm
like to
very
be better at all of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
I think Josh disagrees, but, that's awesome.
She's
Uh
she's a great cook. My
Thanks.
physique is representative of that.
Yes. I was gonna make a really bad joke, but, because you're skinny and no, I'm just kidding. That's bad. Anyway, what about you, Josh?
Oh, man.
Skill that you would learn overnight?
I don't know. I think one of the skills that I lack is being more active, I think, in the like advocacy community or
Sure.
or
Mhm,
efforts, right? I wish I could spend my Saturday mornings at a food kitchen, right? That
Yeah,
would be
mhm.
awesome. I wish
Yeah.
I could spend, my emotional and mental capital on advocating for cancer research or
right.
disability functions or adaptive sports, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's a skill I would love
Yeah.
to
Well, he
up a
beat
little.
me.
Alright. I got it. I like it.
I agree with him. I'll join him on Saturday mornings together. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Okay. Yeah, right. Um, by the way, have you guys, I think I've mentioned this, but have you ever heard of Iron Core with the bridge?
I don't
I have not.
think so.
It's pretty awesome. It happens every Saturday, and we can talk about it after the podcast. But I do it, and I'm super sore, and there's a
Mhm.
physical therapist that will work with any disabled person and just work on whatever they want. So
Mm.
anyway, I don't know why that came up in my head, but yeah. Anyway, that is my brain. What let's get into the theme podcast question. What keeps you rolling forward? Marie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think Max's optimism, his happy personality keeps me moving forward. Yeah,
Great.
he was even at the beginning of all of this, he's just happy. We'd get up, go to chemo. He was, usually clinic days, we'd have to be there at 7:38.
Whoa.
I mean, earlier sometimes, we'd have to wake up at, 6:30, get up and going. He'd
Mm,
hop out of bed and let's go.
mhm.
So I think every day, I think if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what really keeps me going. It wasn't until the end of chemo where he was just like, "Mom, I don't wanna go." He's like, "I can't." Like, the last round was really hard. His body was just done.
Yeah.
Um, but, even some days when I just don't wanna do something, I was like I just really think of him, and I'm just like, "Alright, let's go."
Mm,
So I think he's really, kind of motivation every day.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
What's the age difference between Will and Max?
13 months.
13 months. And
Yeah.
Will is older,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
Max will tell you he's older, but
Yeah, Max is a pretty big, he's a funny guy, and so he will tell you he's older, but he is also taller. He's been taller for a very long time.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Josh, what about you? What keeps you rolling forward?
yeah, I think Max getting, a second chance on life. I think
Mhm.
that really pushes it. It's a little cliche, that I'm motivated by my child, but it's true. I mean, you hear things like kids are resilient and they really are, right? It's not just words. It's not
Mhm.
just a phrase to say. And so, much like Marie, like I can look at Max and see what he's gone through and he still gets up and still pushes through and does things that he doesn't want to do. Sometimes he needs a little nudge, but
Yeah.
specifically to his cancer diagnosis, right? There's a lot of kids who don't make it through, right? The
Mhm.
the survival rates aren't great.
Mm.
They're good, but they're not great.
Mhm.
So there was always that lingering thought in the back of the mind, like, hey, like we're gonna have to see how this turns out. And
Mhm.
it turned out really favorable for Max.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that, right, it just keeps us pushing forward, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's not squander this opportunity.
Yeah. When things were at their hardest, what actually kept you moving day to day?
Um, he had a really rough point in the hospital, when he was in the ICU, I think.
Yeah, so hi- Max had Max had an option for surgery, right? It's a
Mhm.
very unique medical scenario, I think, right? So you get a cancer diagnosis, you go talk to all these different doctors, and surgery is part of it, right? The treatment for osteosarcoma is resection of the tumor.
Mm.
And the thing about bone cancer is it's diseased bone. It never heals, right? It
Mm.
never is replaced by good, healthy bone. So the bone
Interesting.
has to come out, right?
Yeah.
That is the treatment. The
Uh-huh.
treatment is you take the bone out. And so they explain all this to you, and then they say, okay, here are 3 or 4 different surgery options. Which one do you want to do?
Mm.
It's like, wait, you're the doctor. You
Right.
tell me what we're doing. And
Which
so
one do we wanna do?
yeah, so those options are an amputation, a full amputation, high amputation, an allograft, so like a cadaver bone. So
Mm.
the bone comes out and they replace it with a cadaver bone. That doesn't work in children because you're still growing, growth plates are
Ah.
still open. Then you have limb length difference
Yeah.
that you have to deal with later in life. Limb salvage surgery, where they take the bone out, right? Bone comes out and they replace it with a metal rod and a titanium knee. So it's a full knee replacement with an additional metal rod,
Okay.
or rotationplasty.
Okay.
So going through all of these options, you weigh the pros and cons. There's the MSTS mobility scale, so the muscular skeletal tumor societies mobility ranking. UCLA has a mobility ranking. So you look at all these surgery options
Mm.
and you look at, where they rank on these scales, right? An active lifestyle was part of, the decision making process.
Yeah.
And each one of these surgeries has different complications, different issues, right?
Mhm.
The full knee replacement with a metal rod, it's called an endoprosthesis. They make it for children, and then as you grow, they expand it. You eventually outgrow it, so it needs to be replaced at one point.
Mm.
The bushings inside of it wear out at some point, and so it needs to be replaced every 10 or 15 years. So it's like, oh,
Mm.
well, this is a multi-surgery, option for surgery. Rotationplasty is kind of sold as a one and done.
Okay.
Um, and it's a major surgery. There's multiple infections, always a complication, multiple complications that are associated with major surgeries were always present. In Max's particular situation, he had his surgery, and within 12 hours, it's a 9.5 hour surgery.
Wow.
And that varies plus or minus a couple hours, just depending on, the patient, but it's a long surgery. Within 12 hours, he was back in the operating room for another 6 hour surgery. So right
Wow.
off the bat, he had complications, and then he got sent to the ICU. He's in the ICU for like 6 days, something like that.
Whoa.
So
Came out with first time he came out with a wound vac. They had to go back in to clean it out, came back out with
Wait, what's a wound vac?
yeah, so his complication was compartment syndrome, so swelling.
Okay.
So they had to go in and do some exploratory surgery to find out what was causing the compartment syndrome. They found that he had lost the pulse in his ankle, right? So
Oh.
this is a big problem. You lose the pulse in the ankle, the surgery is potentially unsuccessful, right?
mhm.
Oh.
Potentially, right? So they had to go back in, figure out why he had lost the pulse in his ankle, why it was swelling, and so part of that was the incision was left open.
Okay.
And so they had put a wound vac on it, which is basically a vacuum that attaches to the wound, and it provides drainage, right, through a
Oh.
vacuum.
Okay.
And so he came out of the second surgery with that, and just because of the nature of the surgery and being on chemo inhibits healing.
Yeah.
So it's bone's not healing, the wound isn't healing, incision's not healing. So we had to go back in under general anesthesia to get that wound vac replaced. So,
Mm.
you know, I think I lost count at like 15 times he had to have general anesthesia, and we were banking on like under 5.
Mhm.
Wow.
So that stretch of time, that surgery and then post surgery, 6 or 8 weeks was
Mhm.
pretty difficult. Immediately it was very difficult, right? Like Marie said, he ended up in the ICU, and that was pretty stressful. Those
Yeah.
were those were very difficult times.
Yeah, and then what was your original question?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it it was when things were at their hardest, what actually keeps you moving day to day?
So, I think when he was in the ICU, that was, like, probably the hardest, and what kind of kept us going through day to day, and that for me, when it was the hardest was, His, plastic surgeon was phenomenal, and I just kept thinking back to her.
Mm.
She was great from the beginning, just, like, as a person and as a mom, and she just kept reassuring us that he was gonna be okay.
Oh.
Yeah, and so, like, that was the hardest point during his journey, I think, for me at that point,
Mhm.
because she was just ho honest with us, I think, the whole time.
Mm.
Um, that for me personally, I think, was the hardest 'cause, he was going through chemo at the same time as having the surgery, so we knew the healing process was gonna be long and it was gonna be hard.
Yeah.
But, I think just through that whole time, for me, just remember her telling us, like, when he had to go back into surgery, I just remember they were prepping him for his second surgery in the PACU, and I think we were just both devastated, and she just looked at me and she's like, "He's gonna be okay, don't worry."
Mm.
And I just kept playing that in my mind.
Mm.
So, I just that's kind of what helped me.
You always hear that, Cincinnati Children's is, the best children's hospital. Like, what does that mean, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's no way for you and I to quantify that,
Right,
right? It's
right.
it's very it's a very odd it's a very odd. You see a billboard and it's like, come get sick at our hospital because we're the best. It's
Yeah.
very odd. Anyway, so uh, the type of cancer that Max had is is very uncommon, right? And so where
Mhm.
you get treated is a sarcoma center, which just so happens Cincinnati Children's is a sarcoma center.
Mhm.
There's only a handful in the country. I don't
Mm.
know how many, 2 dozen maybe. So you get treated at a sarcoma center. Well, the type of surgery that Max had, rotationplasty, there aren't a lot of doctors that do this, right? So
Right.
the type of doctor that the type of surgeon that works on osteosarcoma is a orthopedic oncologist, right? So they're
Mhm.
orthopedic surgeons that are specifically trained in oncology
Mm.
for this type of uh, disease. There are other bone cancers, other sarcomas that they specialize in, and there's only about 100, maybe 120 in the country, right?
Mhm.
It's hard to nail down numbers because the medical system in the United States, it's difficult to grab those numbers from the population, but the estimate is around 100, 120. And
Mm.
out of those, I think less than half do rotation plasty.
Wow.
So when you say Cincinnati Children's is the best children's hospital in the country, and that's nice. That's nice. That's a nice Newsweek ranking or whatever it
Mm.
is. But the fact that it's a sarcoma center, they had an orthopedic oncologist because not every children's hospital has one or may not have one, and to have one that specializes in this particular surgery was pretty unique.
Mhm.
On
Mhm.
top of that, um, it was an orthopedic oncologist and a plastic surgeon who performed the surgery. They work in tandem, and it's always those two. And not every hospital does that, right?
Interesting.
Mhm.
And the plastic surgeon that worked on Max has a child who is an amputee. So
Mhm.
it's just like all of those things rolled up into one. It was a perfect scenario. We could have easily gone to another hospital and traveled and temporarily relocated or permanently relocated or whatever it was. But I think we were pretty lucky having a specialized center close to home, but also having the doctors. Like Max's medical oncologist is the director of the sarcoma center
Mm.
at Cincinnati Children's. Like you couldn't ask for better attention or treatment. This is the guy at Cincinnati Children's who knows about osteosarcoma, right?
Yeah.
So I think we were it's very weird to say this, but lucky in a sense, right? That
Yeah.
that we had these options available to us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So having that plastic surgeon, like Marie explained, she's not only, exceptional at her job,
Mhm.
is familiar with this type of surgery and these type of patients, but also very compassionate, very
Yeah.
personable,
Mm.
very very helpful, but also has a child that she can on a parent person
Right.
level could relate. So
Oh,
it was very special.
Mhm.
wow. Yeah, it's interesting thinking back to, like, my surgery days with spina bifida. Um, I I had an Arnold Chiari, which they had to remove half the first vertebrae in my neck, and obviously that's really close to the spinal cord.
Mhm.
And I asked the doctor, I said, which was probably a dumb thing. I was in 7th grade, but I asked the doctor, I was like, "How many people have you killed as a result of this surgery?" And he said like 7 or 8, but he's done thousands. And, obviously, like, I appreciate that honesty, right? But,
Right.
like,
That is wild.
at
Yeah.
at the same time, it's one of those things where, like, and he was trying to almost justify, like, "Hey, yeah, but these kids were more deformed and stuff like that, but you're gonna be okay."
Yeah.
And so I think about that moment when Marie, you said that the doctor said you're gonna be he's gonna be okay, and it's like, man, for me, there
Yeah.
was definitely doubt, and I was freaked out with the surgery, and so I'm curious, like, certainly, did you full heartedly believe it,
I did.
or
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? They're the professional. They've
Yeah.
been through this before. They've operated on other kids. They've
Mhm.
seen all the variants, all the one-offs, all the anomalies, right? Yeah, I mean, you have to trust it, right? You
yeah,
you, you have to trust that they're 4 years of medical school and 12 years of residency and fellowship and their, you know,
yeah,
countless years of practice that they know what they're talking. I mean, you just have. My
Yeah.
background is science and engineering, so
yeah.
I trust it.
Yeah, interesting. So I don't know. I guess like yeah, I trust it too, but there is I mean doctors are human, right?
Yeah,
And they do
yeah,
make errors and
yeah.
Yeah.
they predict things
Mhm.
incorrectly and stuff like that. So it's great that that kept you
Mhm.
going through
Mhm.
everything, but I think if it were me in that situation, I would be like, okay, good. That's a good sign,
Mhm.
but also like I'm still doubtful. I don't know, but
Yeah, well, and that wasn't the last hiccup in his journey, let's just say that.
sure.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we had a lot more to come, so
Well, we will get into a lot of that. So I think the next thing that I want to ask is, can you take us back to kind of the beginning of when you figured out Max had cancer, how you figured that out and all that?
yeah, so I remember the day he first, had pain in his leg and his tibia. It was March 19th of
Uh,
2023. Do you remember that day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they
So
were
he was playing soccer, indoor soccer with his brother and some friends,
yeah.
um, at a place in Cincinnati, and, it was the second half of the game, and I remember he was limping, and he took himself out of the game, which Max never does, like,
Uh,
boys love soccer. I remember he took himself out of the game, and, Josh and I were sitting in the stands, and I looked at Josh, I said, "Is he injured?" And the both the boys played club soccer, and club was just starting, and so I was like, "Oh my gosh, he can't be injured, like, they have a tournament coming up," and so,
hmm,
he took himself out of the game and kinda kept taking himself in and out of the game the second half, and, after the game, I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, my leg kinda hurts." So we're just like, "Okay, let's do some ice and ibuprofen." I thought maybe he got, like, hit kicked really hard. And, they had, outdoor practice that week um, for their club team, and they went to that practice that week.
mhm,
And then the next Saturday, which, or the next Sunday, they went to
then
they
another indoor
they had
game.
another indoor game,
mm,
and he took himself out in the first half, I remember,
wow.
and he was limping, and I don't even know if he went back in or he kept subbing in and out, and so, then we did the same thing. We did ice and ibuprofen, and we massaged, we did some massage,
Thought he
and
had shin splints or something,
yeah.
right? It was
Yeah,
yeah, he kept pointing to a certain spot on his leg.
yeah,
Mm,
and so I don't remember if they had a, outdoor club practice that night, but I remember the next Tuesday, um, he,
He's like, "I don't wanna go to
he's
practice."
like, "I don't wanna go to practice." He's like, "I can't go to outdoor practice," and so this is odd for Max, and I remember the Friday before, in between the 2 Sunday games, we had celebrated his birthday at an indoor Nerf arena, and I'm like, "Maybe he just overdid it, like, maybe he does have shin splints."
mm,
Running around with his friends was too much with all the soccer that he's doing, and so I remember Josh was like, "Well, if you can't go to outdoor practice, then, we need to go see the doctor."
I told him, I said, "Mac," big dad moment, right? I told him, "Max, if you can't go to practice, we're gonna take you to the doctor."
Mm,
Just to see just to see where he was in it.
yeah.
And he was like, "Okay." It's like,
Whoa.
"Oh,
Yeah.
dang, here it comes." Like,
Mhm.
what's going on? So, you know, then you know then you know he's really injured. It's
Yeah.
not some shin splints. It's not something that ibuprofen or ice is gonna take care of. Like, let's get him to the doctor.
Yeah, because they have I mean, our boys, love soccer, like, they were on several indoor teams, they were playing on club. So I remember I'm like, "Okay, so what do I do? Like, do I just call the pediatrician in the morning?" We have a really good friend who's a sports medicine doctor, and Max, had actually fractured his, growth plate in his ankle on his right leg the spring before.
Oh.
So, our friend
Real quick, which one has the amputation or the
Left.
rotation plastic? It's
left,
left.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, "You know what? Let me just call him and see if he had Josh had taken him to our friend the spring before and had, taken our friend had taken care of Max and given him some exercises to do, to get him back on track. I'm like, let me just call our friend to see if he could, see Max this week just to see him instead of taking him to the pediatrician. So I called our friend that night and I called him and I said, "Hey, I think Max hurt himself again playing soccer." I said, "Is there any way that you could see him sometime this week?" And our friend's like, "Yeah, no problem. We have lunch tomorrow from 12 to 1. Bring him in around 1 and I'll fit you guys in." I said, "Okay, perfect. That's great." Pick Max up from school, take him in. They do an X-ray. Um, and when they did the X-ray, actually the person reading the X-ray said that it was a clean X-ray. The X-ray, they didn't see anything on the X-ray.
Oh, okay.
So the doctor's like, clinically, he's like, I'm poking on his leg and he's responding. There's something there.
Yeah.
The radiograph looks clear, but clinically there's something there. He's like, it could be, like a stress fracture or something that's just not presenting on X-ray yet. He's like, let's get him on some crutches, get him some rest, and have him come back and get some
Mhm.
more imaging.
Mm.
And so that's what we did. We went home with crutches. He
Got
was
him a wheelchair for school so he wouldn't be tempted to, like, run around at recess,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
because he had pain, but just enough pain that he could feel it, but not enough pain that he didn't want to walk on his leg.
Mhm.
So they had spring break. We had a wheelchair for spring break. Went to Indianapolis, went to the kids museum, pushed him around in a wheelchair. Right, just hey, let's stay off of it. Let's really take this
Mhm.
serious.
Let it heal if it's, a sprain or I don't know,
Yeah.
something.
If
Yeah.
it is a stress fracture, right, it's non-weight bearing. Let's get you ready for the spring soccer season. That was the mentality
Yeah.
was let's let's get ready for your sporting activity.
Yeah.
So we go back. He goes back 2 weeks later. Doctor says,
Wait, real
yeah,
quick, does cancer it sounds like the X-ray obviously didn't pick up the cancer.
yeah,
Does it normally or is it
yeah.
like
That's the primary. Um, that's the primary tool used to find it
it is?
is
Okay.
X-ray.
Yeah.
So
So it's kinda surprising that the X-ray didn't pick it up then.
he goes back in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Doctor says, "Yep, let's get another X-ray." So I take him like Monday morning at like 8 a.m. Like, let's go. School started at like 9. Let's get an X-ray before school starts, and we'll get you to school on time.
Yeah.
Goes and gets an X-ray. I drop him off at school. By the time I get home, right, the hospital's 5 miles away. The school's 1 mile from our house. So I get him to school by 9. I'm home by 9:05. Get
Mhm.
a call from the doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, so there's a problem." It's like,
Oh,
"Oh," just from the X-ray. So the primary tool used to find this is X-ray,
yeah.
and just in 2 weeks, the two radiographs were that different that
Wow.
it showed up.
Okay.
So the doctor's like, it's not a stress fracture. It's either a bone infection or something else."
Mm,
And he's like, Cincinnati Children's is going to be calling you to schedule an MRI. I'm like, what are you
mm.
talking about? He's like, Josh, this is serious.
Oh,
Like, they're going to call you. So I hang up the phone with the doctor, and Doc's like, go pick Max up. He's like, where's Max right now? Like, he's at school. Go pick him
Mm.
up. Talk to Cincinnati Children's. So I go pick him up, and sure as can be, I pick Max up. I'm pulling out of the school. Cincinnati Children calls.
Mm.
They're like, hi, we need to schedule an MRI. When can you be here? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we've cleared the schedule. There's a machine open. When can you be here? I'm like, what are you
Whoa.
talking about? They're like, as soon as you get here, we can get you an MRI. So
Wow.
basically, I drove from school to Cincinnati Children's. They get him in. They do the MRI. And another set of x-rays were ordered, right? So the x-rays in the morning were, one viewpoint. They wanted x-rays, another viewpoint. So head downstairs to get the other x-rays. As soon as we walk out of that, the MRI takes a long time, 3-4 hours. I don't remember, 2 hours. I don't remember how long it took. It took a long time. So I think by like noon or 1, we're walking out of the second set of x-rays. The original doctor that we had gone to called and was like, yes, it's not a bone infection. It's not a stress fracture. It's osteosarcoma.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know what that word means. I've never heard that word before in my life. I
Right.
said, is it benign or malignant? And he says it's malignant. And he's like, the radiologist noticed it like 5 minutes into the MRI, whatever
Mm.
it was, right? Super early they found it, could see it clear as day right away.
Mm.
I don't remember much of the conversation after that. I talked to him for a while. And so that was Monday. Tuesday, he's at Cincinnati Children's for a biopsy. Right?
Mhm.
That's the real way to do, because you take a biopsy, it goes to pathology. They can look at the cells under a microscope and properly classify them. So, you just have this weird glimmer of hope that maybe the imaging's wrong.
Right.
Well, he gets the biopsy. The doctor who performed the surgery, I'd taken Max to his biopsy. They call you in the post-surgery patient consultant room, and he's just like, if you have family close, call them,
Mm.
because it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be
Mm.
very difficult, and it's gonna be a wild ride.
Mm.
And like that was it. After that, it's we start talking to the medical oncologist, and I think he started chemo like 10 days later,
Mhm.
something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
So it went from limping during playing soccer to, hey, he might have a stress fracture. Let's go non-weight bearing just to see,
Mhm.
to cancer diagnosis all within a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was officially diagnosed April 19th. So Marie said, March 19th is when we saw him first limping.
Mm.
April 19th was when he was officially
Mhm.
diagnosed, within a
Mm.
month.
'Kay. Um, so did from the first X-ray to the second one,
Yeah.
was, was this I guess, a fast-growing cancer, it sounds like, or
So it
yeah.
is. So that's a very difficult question. It's a difficult question for me because I don't work in the medical field,
Sure, sure.
right? But it's even a difficult. These are all the questions I asked to the medical professionals, and they don't have answers to this, right?
Sure.
The idea or the general concept is there's some mutation, right? Something happens, right?
Yeah.
Either it's cosmic ray or something we don't know about, right? Um, and these cancer cells start to grow, and at some point there's some catalyst or some trigger that initiates rapid growth.
Yeah.
And everybody told us we caught it early.
You
i
did, okay.
I think, going, him limping and us going to the doctor, and the doctor saying, hey, let's go weight bearing, and then let's follow up with imaging. I don't think that typically happens. We've met other families who have had very different paths where they've waited months and months and months.
Mm.
It
Maybe the primary care doctor said
it's growing pains
it's
or
growing pains,
youth arthritis or
or they just have an injury. Maybe it's a bone bruise, or maybe
yeah.
they don't even do imaging, right?
Right.
And it's 6 months later before it's properly discovered and
Mhm.
diagnosed. So
Right.
we're very thankful for this initial doctor who said, let's follow up with imaging,
Yeah.
right? Because it caught it, right? It,
Mhm.
it could have been, hey, go on crutches for 2 weeks and then start activities again. Some kids find out, some osteosarcoma patients find out by fracture. They break the bone because
Mm.
it's diseased bone, it's weak bone. So like
Oh.
the way bone is formed is you grow a matrix, right? And then it ossifies, it calcifies, right?
Mhm.
And so this is the osteosarcoma is this diseased matrix that never grows into healthy bone.
Yeah.
So you can have this like weak sponge like bone growing, and then
Mhm.
ultimately you fracture the bone, and that's how you find out you have osteosarcoma. So
Interesting.
yeah, I think we caught it pretty early. At least we're told that. But
Mhm.
like how fast and aggressive it is. I mean, so his diagnosis is high grade osteosarcoma, and high grade just means it grows fast. It's aggressive.
Okay.
There's low grade. It's much less common.
Sure.
It's uncommon of the uncommon. Right?
Yeah.
There's multiple different types of osteosarcoma, and they're
Mhm.
all increasingly rare. So, anyways, yeah.
So what, as far as the the cancer, that's interesting. I didn't realize that most people discover it by a broken bone or something like that. What's do you know, or did the doctors tell you, like, for Max to have something like this? What's the, like, I imagine it's a super low, like, rare thing that usually happens to kids, right?
So I'll tell you our experience. The data on it is limited, right?
Sure.
It's very rare,
Yeah.
right? I hate that word, but it's a thing. So it most commonly happens in adolescence, like between the age of 12 and 17. It's most
Mhm.
common when children are going through growth spurts. So rapid growth of the bone is typically when this presents. So
Mhm.
Max it was a month after it was right around his 10th birthday. So he's 9, 10, just turned 10.
Yeah.
It's less common at that age. We've met families who have had children who this presented at 5 years old,
Wow.
18 months old. Those are extremely rare. So
Yeah.
the most common is like 12 to 17. And then there's a second peak in the age range, like over 60, like around 65. So it's
Huh.
people who have had radiation treatment for a different cancer at a younger age,
Oh.
and then it presents later in life. Um, so Max was under the typical age range, but um, I asked the doctor. I said, how many 10-year-olds get this? And his response was, under 18, under 19, I think it was. There's anywhere from 400 to 600 cases of osteosarcoma a year.
Okay.
He said a 10-year-old, maybe one a year.
Wow.
Right. So it's pretty uncommon for children in general to get it, and then the younger you are, the more uncommon it becomes.
Right. Right. So that's kind of the process that you took Max through to discover that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you both got the news, I assume, Josh, you got the news first. Is that
Yep. I got the
We called
news.
him a Wednesday after he got the
So
biopsy.
I took Max to the MRI, and I
Yeah.
got the call from the primary doctor,
Mhm.
and then I had to relay that to Marie.
yeah. Okay.
And so that was Monday. So I brought Max home, didn't take him back to school after that. Right? It's 1, 2 in the afternoon. Max, go downstairs, go play some video games, whatever, right? Go
Yeah.
have a day.
Yeah.
And Marie's like, anxiously waiting in the kitchen or the couch. I don't even know where I didn't,
You don't even know, right?
didn't like that. And she's like, what the F is going on? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, then I have to break the news to her. I'm
Right.
not calling her while I'm in the car because I could barely focus on the road to drive home. Right.
Right.
So I tell her when I get home, and it's like, right, it's awful.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had to tell Max that he had to go back to the hospital on Tuesday to get a biopsy. So we sit Will and Max down on the couch, tell them together. It's like, Max, here's the deal. You don't have a stress fracture. There's a tumor in your leg, and you have to go get a biopsy.
Mm.
And like immediately Will goes, "Is it cancer?"
Immediately.
It's like,
Oh,
And
he
then
knew.
Will
yeah.
knew. And immediately Will starts crying, and Max looks at Will, and Max starts crying. So I think we learned our lesson then. We do not tell them things together. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
still do, but it was
Yeah. That was
Will was keen to it like immediately, and Max was like, what is going on?
yeah.
Yeah. So when you first got it, like, if you don't mind sharing, like, what was going through your head?
Man, like I don't sleep in general.
He
It's not a
doesn't.
thing. It's not a thing I like to do.
Yeah.
I like to be awake and I like to be asleep. I don't like to transition between the two, so I avoid it. So, like, immediately I'm just, the doctor that we had initially taken Max to is a close friend of mine.
Great.
And so I'm immediately on the phone, like, what is this? What's going on? And, he's a sports medicine doctor.
Mm.
He's not an oncologist. And he's like, I've seen one case of this before.
Mm.
He said, this is way out of my wheelhouse, but here's some resources. He reached out to his network of doctors and asked a bunch of questions. So he's providing feedback and input. I'm talking to him on the phone, but I'm also,
So did you reach out to him before you reached out to Marie? Or was this like you guys had the discussion?
so, uh, after the MRI,
Yeah.
right? After medical professionals discover something like this and have to give a diagnosis or inform the family, they put together like I don't know what it's called, critical parent informing team, whatever
Okay.
it is. They
Interesting.
get medical professionals together. What
Uh,
catastrophic news or there's some word for it
There's a
that's
team.
serious.
They put a team together to break bad news to parents.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
so being the ordering doctor of the MRI, this sports medicine doctor, and being our friend said, I'll take care of it.
I'll
So
break the bad news.
so he's actually the one who called me and said, "Hey, it's not a bone infection. It's not a stress fracture. It's osteosarcoma." So
Mm.
y- my friend is calling me
Yeah.
to tell me this.
Yeah.
So I had talked to him before I talked to Marie, just because he
Right.
called
Sure.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, like, with the original question was like, what's going on in your head? Or you just have all these questions about next steps,
Of
or
course, right?
Yeah.
Like when he tells me this, I'm like, "What is osteo?" I don't know what it is. So I immediately, go on the internet, like
yeah,
any horrible patient or parent does.
sure,
But I tried to stick to PubMed and NIH publications and just try to read
Mhm.
as much as possible because it's the unknown, right? Like,
Yeah,
should I be how concerned should I be about this? Should I be worried? How worried should I be about this? And so
right.
I when Marie and I talked about it, that's kind of the tone we set. I was like, let's figure out what this is
Mm,
before we set our level of panic.
okay.
And so that's kind of how I approached it.
Yeah.
And I told Marie, I was like, don't get on the internet, don't read anything.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be your filter, because you can find a Facebook post or a blog of anybody and everybody who's unqualified to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right. And so I tried to, read stuff from the Mayo Clinic, stuff, published research. And so once I got a grasp of it, it's like, this is awful. Like,
Yeah.
all cancers are awful, and I'm a little biased. Like, we are a little biased because, it's our child and we're biased towards your own child. That's just human nature.
Sure.
Like, osteosarcoma is awful. Like,
Yeah.
leukemia is not a walk in the park. It is not easy by any means, right? There are people who do not survive every cancer.
Yeah.
Um, you just hear about other families going through treatments. And once I started reading about the treatment for osteosarcoma, it's awful. Like,
Yeah.
it is absolutely awful.
Yeah.
There's one chemo med that you get that they give you an amount that's above the LD 50/50, right? Meaning 50% of the population, this amount of this product will kill you.
Whoa.
So what they do is they hyperhydrate you and they give you what's called rescue meds while they give you this chemo.
Mm,
Like, you read about that stuff and you're like, this is no joke. And then your
Right.
child goes through it and you're like, yeah, this is awful.
Wow.
So, initially, back to your question, like initially, I think we were like, what is this?
Yeah.
Confused. We're in the unknown territory. Let's figure out what this is so we can figure out what we're up against. And
Mhm.
it being a rare cancer, there's not a lot of data, there's not a lot of
Mhm.
information. The treatment for it is 40 years old, right?
Wow.
How they used to originally treat osteosarcoma is they used to just amputate and send you on
Mhm.
your way. They added this reconstruction leg surgery option, and then they sent you on your way.
Mm.
Not until about the 80s, there were some trials in the 70s. Not until about the 80s did they add chemotherapy into the surgery or into
Mhm.
the treatment plan. And so the point of chemotherapy is you think of a dandelion, you blow on a dandelion, it goes everywhere.
Mhm.
This is the theory with osteosarcoma is you have a primary tumor. If it's not metastatic at diagnoses, there's still these micrometastases that are potentially floating through the body. And so that's what chemotherapy addresses.
Mm.
So the surgery is the treatment. The surgery removes the cancer from the patient's body. The chemotherapy is to prevent this metastatic spread.
Mm.
And once they did that, right, the original treatments were just amputation. Survival rates were really low, 30-40%. Once they added chemotherapy, long-term survival can be in the 70s, right?
Mm.
70-75%.
Mm.
But that treatment hasn't changed since the 80s, right?
Mm.
They've not added any more or any different chemotherapies. There's lots of trials for immunotherapy, recurrent osteosarcoma. There's some different chemotherapies that you use only because the chemotherapies you use in the first phase of treatment, there's a lifetime limit on one of those chemotherapies. We have a
Mm.
piece of paper that says Max has received like 96% of the lifetime dose he can ever receive for this chemotherapy.
Whoa.
Right? So it's very aggressive. And so if you have recurrent osteosarcoma, the survival rates are really, really low, like
Oh.
20-30%. Right?
Wow.
So once you read about that stuff, you're like, all right, now I'm worried, right? Like, like we caught it early, so he didn't have the cancer hadn't spread. He didn't have metastatic osteosarcoma diagnosis, so he was really lucky from that standpoint. And
Mhm.
so far, it hasn't recurred.
Mhm.
I remember you talked about this earlier, like survivorship. You really hit it at the 5-year mark.
Mm.
Recurrence asymptotically falls off at 2 years, so he's hit
Mhm.
that 2-year post treatment point, and so recurrence is very reduced. It's much less likely now,
Right.
but still in the back of your mind.
Right.
So that that initial wave was like, what should I be worried about?
Yeah.
Now that I understand it more at a patient caregiver
Mhm.
level,
Mhm.
this is what I am worried about. And then we communicate with, Max's medical team is like, hey,
Yeah.
what is this? And is this something that Max will face or be up against or whatever? And so that kind of frames, the level of panic or what have you, or the worry or the things you think about more or less than you should.
Yeah. So Marie, that
Mhm.
it sounds like Josh had a very logical approach to that, and when he was giving you n the news, what, were you thinking along those same lines, or did you kinda need, I don't know, push to get, "Okay, let's think about it like this instead."
No, I mean, I think we were always, a team in Max's care and thinking along the same lines.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I just tried to be that filter for her, right?
Yeah.
Like, we talked about this earlier. Like, your kid gets sick, you give them a bowl of noodle soup and it helps them, right? At
Mhm.
least you think it does. Right? With this, you can't do anything. And so,
Yeah.
like, let me be the one that stumbles through this mess of information and let me try to filter it.
Right.
Because we don't need two parents over worrying. I'll be the one that gets to over worry, and
Yeah, and I also think,
that felt like I was actually doing something.
yeah, and not to make a joke of it, but, Josh says he never sleeps, which he never does, and I like to go to bed early. So, like, somehow I would be able to fall asleep. But then I would wake up at 3 probably when he was going to bed, and I would and a couple of times I'd be like, "Okay, I can, like, empty the dishwasher," or, like, I would flip the laundry over, but then I would wake up at 3 AM not being able to sleep anymore, just like, my mind racing, and I would wanna do something, but then I would wake up, and I would wake him up. He's like, "What are you doing awake? I just fell asleep."
Oh, no.
But, he was, sorting out kind of he was sorting out, all the articles that he was reading online, and honestly, I'm never one to I don't feel like I am to delve into everything on the internet because I just feel like it's a deep hole anyways.
Yeah.
And he's a really good researcher and, like, scientist, and he can sort all that stuff out and bring out the good stuff. But also, I just really wanted, like, the boys' mental health to also be good, so because our older son really struggled at the beginning, and so I just kind of was sorting out everything at school for him in that aspect, so I feel like we were on the same page, and we also had, like, our own wheelhouses to take care of as well to make sure that the boys were okay at school and they had their outlets at school that they could, um, that were taken care of as well.
Mm,
So, I think we worked really well as a team in that aspect, but we also kind of, uh took care of our own individual things that we needed to take care of.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. You always hear about, like, the stories of, like, and this is obviously completely different, but the story of, like, you get a cough and you Google it, and then you read, like, "Oh, you have all these horrible things."
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that makes sense for, like, one of you to take that on and, like, not, like, free not get really into the weeds on, like, every possible thing that could possibly happen, and
Yep.
it's like so it's almost goes back to me asking the doctor how many people you've killed and,
Well, I
like
just remember when we were having kids, someone gave me a piece of advice, and they said, "Just make sure you love your pediatrician."
ah,
And I just really take that to heart. And so, like, if the boys are ever sick, we probably taken them to the doctor more often than we probably should when they've been sick. But like, I really just trust the doctor.
mm,
Like if they're sick, take them to the doctor. If in this case, we were taking back to the doctor, Josh was doing some due diligence research, and any questions that we had, like we would go to the orthopedic oncologist meetings, to the oncology appointments with just like notebooks full of questions.
ah,
And so, we were going to them with the questions that we had,
yeah.
so
Eh,
we were always prepared, I felt like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna transition into the wheelie bad joke segment.
Okay, great. Love it.
I have a lot more questions for you,
Yeah.
but we are going to get into the wheelie bad jokes.
Okay.
Just a really quick random question. Do you guys know any amputee jokes?
Um, I know one, but I'm not gonna say it because I'll probably mess it up.
Well, I'm stumped.
Love it.
Uh,
So okay, I was excited, but I do have another one.
Okay.
So here's let me explain how wheelie bad jokes works.
Yes.
okay.
Is I'm gonna tell a wheelie bad joke. I want you guys to rate it, and then at the end, if you have a joke,
Mhm.
I'd love for you to say one
Mhm.
back. If not, no worries. Most of my
Okay.
guests don't have one. So, are
Okay.
you ready for the wheelie bad joke?
Yes.
Okay. What is an amputee's favorite music?
Amputee's favorite music.
Oh.
I don't know. I feel like it might be like a pirate song.
Pirate song. That's good.
Well, I don't know.
An amputee's favorite music is hip hop.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So Max loves jokes. I will
Mhm.
be telling Max this joke when we get home.
Yeah.
well, Hendo's joke, right? What's an amputee's favorite restaurant?
IHOP.
IHOP. Yeah. Yeah. That one was
That was a good.
that's an inside joke now when we're at tennis practice. We
I love
we,
it.
we
I
sometimes
love
just
the
stream
shirt he wore on your show. God, that was so great.
the gingerbread man with
Yes.
the missing legs thing. What was it?
Is it, oh,
Oh,
snap.
snap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Okay, so do you have sounds like Maria, you might have a
No,
joke?
I'm gonna say it wrong. I'm not gonna say it. I say all my jokes wrong. They're all so bad.
You're great. I don't know any amputee. Max tells an awful, awful cancer joke.
Oh
Oh.
yeah.
Do you remember it?
I do. I just want to preface it with, um, there's a rule in our house that nobody's allowed to tell this joke except Max, but I'll pretend like I'm Max right now.
Okay.
Um, what do you what do you call a fish with cancer?
What?
Finding chemo.
Oh,
I mean, this is
finding chemo, that's so bad.
it's Max's joke. He's allowed to say it, right?
I
If you've been through the process, you're allowed to tell that joke.
Is that the original joke, or
I
did he get that
I
somewhere?
don't know,
Who
but
knows?
it's
Oh
very
my gosh, who knows?
Max loves telling jokes, and he dropped that on us one day, and I had a similar reaction as you. I was like,
What?
"Oh my goodness."
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, well, that's a little lighthearted humor for
I love
everybody.
it.
Let's get back into, so the you guys talked about your the diagnosis,
Mhm.
all
mm,
that.
mm,
Obviously, rotationplasty didn't immediately come.
yeah,
Sounds like what were the next steps after you got the diagnosis?
right. So, go through the biopsy, then we talk to the medical oncologist. You know, they present the findings from the biopsy and pathology to a tumor board, and they provide an official diagnosis. You know, I got a call at like 9:30 p.m. on a Wednesday from a blocked number. I'm
Whoa,
like, yeah, I should, you know, with telemarketers and all that stuff these days.
they don't block numbers.
Yeah, I'm like, I better answer this one. And sure enough, it's him. He's like, just got out of the tumor board. Here's what it
It's the
is.
oncologist.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
medical
It was
oncologist.
the Wednesday after the biopsy.
Okay,
So the medical oncologist calls and he's like, "Hey, just got out of the tumor board. We're gonna give an official diagnosis. Max will have his port installed and then start chemo." Right.
okay,
Um, so that's all through the medical oncologist, right? They you know handle the diagnoses. They schedule the chemo. They do all that stuff,
mhm,
right? And remember the treatment is two pronged, right? It's chemotherapy, but it's also this surgery to remove the tumor.
got it.
So
Okay,
then we go meet.
so chemo itself would not
n-
help. Okay,
No, chemo doesn't kill the tumor. They measure necrosis, you know, cell death in the tumor once
mhm,
it's taken out. Pathology looks at it. Um, but the tumor has to come out, right? The bone never regrows healthy bone, right?
mm,
It's diseased bone.
mhm,
If if you just did chemotherapy, there's a chance you don't kill all of the tumor. But even if you did, it's weak,
mm,
diseased bone that just doesn't function as bone.
mm,
Right? And it impacted his growth plate, so that leg's not gonna grow like
mm,
it should, and he would break it, right? It's just weak bone matrix.
yeah,
So you go talk to the orthopedic oncologist, the bone cancer
Which
specialist.
was the next Wednesday.
mm,
So we go talk to him, and he is basically like he's the, you know, co-head of the sarcoma program at Cincinnati Children's. Very experienced, very knowledgeable. And the point of the discussion with him is surgery options, right? He explains, you know, the other prong of the treatment. You know, you get chemo and you get surgery. The medical oncologist had told us, right? You need to go. You will be scheduled an appointment with the orthopedic oncologist, and he'll talk about surgery options. Here's what that may or may not look like. You know, he kind of preps you for that discussion.
mhm,
So go talk to the orthopedic oncologist, and he tells you all the surgery options. So we talked about that early: amputation, endoprosthesis, you know, knee reconstruction, and then rotationplasty.
yeah,
So the orthopedic oncologist goes through all those, explains all those, gives you some pros and cons of each, and then is kind of like, you need to decide.
mm,
And so that sparks another, you know, raged NIH PubMed research discovery process, right? What is the research that's out there? Can I find it? Can I read it and digest it and make sense of it? And so we actually went back and met with him 2 or 3 times,
Yeah,
mm.
quite a few times.
which is crazy. I mean, this guy schedules 5-minute appointments. Right?
Whoa,
Yeah.
He's known in Cincinnati as an orthopedic surgeon. He does other surgeries for adults, and only spends a portion of his time at Cincinnati Children's.
On Wednesday.
He's a
Yeah.
very busy person, right? And only does um, only does appointments Wednesday afternoons,
Mm.
right? So, you know, this type of cancer diagnoses, I won't say you get special treatment, but you get a lot of attention. And
Mm.
so it was thankfully he provided easy access for us. And so we actually went back and had multiple conversations with him and the plastic surgeon about surgery options, right?
Mhm.
Um, in You have that discussion, but there's a timeline on it, right? Because the treatment is 2 cycles of chemotherapy, and they're 5 weeks each, and
Mm.
then you have surgery, and then you do 4 more cycles of chemotherapy. And so
Wow.
there's a date. Once you start chemotherapy, there's a date where you have surgery. And if you do an endoprosthesis, this knee replacement with a metal rod, they make it custom to your body and size and, you know, void that it has to fill. And so there's a manufacturing lead time on that. So you have to
Mm.
make a decision.
With
And if that's your choice, there has to be enough time for the manufacturer to make that. So
Wow.
we had 3
e-
weeks.
yeah, even though it's 10 weeks into the treatment process, you had to make the decision, whatever, 6 or 7 weeks out so they could manufacture.
Mhm.
So you get the diagnosis, you go meet with this orthopedic oncologist about surgery, and you have to make a decision within 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Again, like, how many medical scenarios can you think of where you get a choice in what type of treatment you get, let alone a major surgery?
Right.
So that was pretty wild, going through that evolution. We found a bunch of other people who had gone through this process. We found folks who had chosen to do the endoprosthesis knee replacement thing. We had talked to folks who had had amputation. We had talked to folks who had done rotationplasty, and just try to gather as much information.
Right.
I'm a big fan of gathering information and as much data as possible, and then trying to make a decision based off of that,
Mm.
right? Like, there's value in having a mentor. Right? Take tennis, for example, right? There's value in having a coach and a mentor. And
Of
maybe you do
course.
maybe
Yeah.
you do a little shopping around and you find the person that matches up with you
Mhm.
specifically. The flip side of that, or another alternative, is you train 5 days a week and you use a different coach each day. Is there
Mm.
value in that? There could be, right? Each coach could be teaching you something different, but there may be some detriment to that. Maybe you're not making as much progress as possible because
They
if
don't
you,
know you.
yeah, they don't know you. Or if you went with one specific coach, they can hyper focus on developing a certain part of your game,
Right.
right? Whatever, right? You get the point. So my approach in this was just to gather, just talk to everybody,
Mm.
talk to as many people who made the varying different choices in surgery, and gather that information and see what their experience was, right?
Mhm.
What was living with an amputation like? What was living with rotationplasty like, which is an amputation, right? What was this knee replacement like? How long did it last? What
Mhm.
was the way the orthopedic oncologist explained it to us was, you can't run, you can't jump. If you go to the beach and there's a rogue wave coming in, your back is turned to the ocean and you get smacked by a wave, it could break that implant,
Whoa.
right? So imagine telling a 10-year-old boy you can't run and jump, who has
Mhm.
spent 10 years of his life running and jumping,
Right.
right? Um, so you go through that evolution, and you ultimately have to pick. You have a date. Like, the surgeon is like, you have to tell us by this date what surgery option you want. So we,
Mm.
we take those surgery options. I'm a big write it down on a piece of paper, make a pro column, make a cons column. So we
Mhm.
did that for all of them. And then we talked to Max. It's like,
Can I
hey,
can I step
Mhm.
back for a quick second?
Mhm.
Do you both work full time or
Yes.
we do.
Mhm.
geez, so you have 3 weeks
Mhm.
to do this, and you're both working full time, and obviously you have kids, and you're
Mhm.
taking him to the doctor, and Will, I'm sure
Mhm.
he's doing maybe
Yep.
sports or something like that on
And
this
school.
time. This has got to be a chaotic time where your time is just spent doing as much as possible.
It's it's almost indescribable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's difficult to explain the amount of pressure and difficulty is because
Sure.
Max had started chemo by then,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So
Oh.
the chemo treatment for osteosarcoma is week 1, you go into the hospital for 2 days and you receive chemotherapy over those 2 days, and then you go home. So let's say
Mm.
it's a Monday, Tuesday. You come back the next week, you get the same chemotherapy Monday and Tuesday, then you go home.
How long's the chemo each time?
It's an IV, so it's not long, right? It
Okay.
takes 30 minutes to an hour
But
to
it's
administer.
inpatient, so he's at the hospital.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you go home and then the 3rd week you get off. Well, every cycle, right? These 2 chemotherapies are strong and awful, and
Yeah.
people get it affects every patient differently. Max ended up getting pretty chemo sick. So
Uh,
his off week, he was very ill,
Mhm.
like
And
mm.
home and very ill.
he popped a fever that first round, and so we were back at the
Ooh.
hospital.
So that off
So even
week
the off week, you're still in the hospital.
That
Wow.
off week, if the patient gets a fever above what 35 Celsius, whatever,
100.3.
100.6,
Yeah, 100.3.
whatever that conversion is, you go to the ER.
Uh,
So like the protocol was, if you pop a fever over a certain level, you call this hotline and they notify the ER. Like we would walk in the ER with Max, full ER. There's 60 kids in the ER at Cincinnati Children's. They see you walk in, they're like, Max Valentine. Yep, that's him. Let's go in the back.
come
Right?
off
They
hospital.
immediately take you in the back. They immediately administer antibiotics because you're getting chemotherapy, you're immunosuppressed, and any type of infection is potentially
Oh.
deadly, right? It's very so you're dealing with like this is all going on, right?
Right.
Max is getting sick. Max is popping a fever. We're in the ER in the off weeks. The week 4 and 5 of the 5-week cycle, you get administered chemotherapy on the first day, and this is the one that exceeds, the lethal dose, right? And so the discharge requirements are it has to um, uh, reduce to a certain blood level concentration,
Yeah.
right? And so um, he's getting this. He gets this treatment on Monday, and then it takes 4 or 5 days for it to clear his system.
Mhm.
So that's how the cycles work. And so this is all going on. He's receiving this chemotherapy treatment while we're weighing these options. And so he's tired, he's exhausted, he's sick, he's throwing up, and we have to talk to him about surgery options.
Mm.
And we did as much work as we could. He's 10 years old at the time.
Mhm.
He has brain fog from chemo, feeling like crap. And then we have to present these surgery options. And
Mm.
it's like, look, dude, like, hey, how do you tell your son that he, is facing an amputation uh, or knee reconstruction surgery,
Mhm.
let alone we wanted him to have a choice in it.
Yeah.
We wanted him to have a say in it.
I
We
think
didn't force him to choose,
No.
right? But we wanted him to participate in the decision process.
Yeah, and I think from the beginning, Josh had done research and I was unfamiliar with rotationplasty. And when you see the video from the Mayo Clinic,
It's shocking. Right?
you see it and you're like, no, thank you. You're not going to do that to my child originally.
Yeah.
But then you read the pros of rotationplasty and versus our other options, and you're like, okay, I get it.
So
And then you see others who have had it in the life that they have,
Mm.
and you're like, absolutely.
Ah.
So Josh did a wonderful job of presenting all the different options to Max.
and that's really what it boiled down to, right? Is like you do this knee replacement, this endoprosthesis, and your leg looks like a leg. Kinda, you got a big gnarly scar, you know, but it looks like a leg.
Mhm.
But back to, what the doctor told us, you can't run or jump. If you
Mm.
run or jump, it prematurely wears out or it breaks, and then
Mm.
you have another major surgery. Or rotationplasty, where your mobility on these UCLA and MSTS mobility scores is at a maximum, but it
Mhm.
doesn't look like a leg.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's a very unique surgery. It's a very unique, cosmetic presentation.
Mhm.
So that's how we presented to Max. It's like, look, you can keep a leg, and you're gonna be restricted, or you have something that doesn't look like a leg, but you're gonna be very active. And, you know, obviously wasn't presented like that. We were very sensitive and cognizant of speaking to a 10-year-old,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And so we explained these things to Max, and he had a couple questions. Um, but ultimately he was like, I want to do that.
Mm,
And he selected rotationplasty. And we were kind of leaning that way. I think we were both
mm,
um on board with that. We were prepared for whatever decision he made. But we wanted to be sure. So we go back to Max a few days later. And it's like, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this. We tried to find a day where his mind was a little clearer, where he was feeling a little better than other days,
mhm,
right? And so we go back to him and like, hey, we need to talk about this. And, we kind of walk through it again. And he's like, I already made my decision and I'm okay with it.
mm,
And that was it, right? He was resolute in his decision, and we supported it. We had to. Um, then we had to talk to Will about it and say, hey, these were the options. We talked to your brother about it. This is what he picked. And Will was like, okay.
mm,
So that was very surreal, right?
mhm.
It's selecting a major surgery option during the middle of treatment is great. It's absolutely crazy. But
Yeah.
we tried to be as thorough as possible and do our due diligence, give Max all the information that was available. We
Mhm,
double checked, like, hey, like, this is what it's going to look like, right?
mhm,
Uh, this is what it's going to mean, right?
mhm.
This is all the things that we just described to you, right? Like, this is what treatment, like, there's no option, right? The bone in your leg has to come out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
How do you explain that to a 10-year-old, right?
right.
It's and then we have to reconstruct your leg. The doctors have to reconstruct your leg, and these are the options, right?
Mhm.
It's a wild experience.
Yeah, right.
And I think a fear also is, we talked to a family, um, and their son was, chose the rotation plasty option, and then after surgery, their son looked down at their leg and was like, "Oh my gosh,
Oh.
like what happened?"
Mm,
And that was like I think one of my biggest fears after Max came out of surgery. And so I remember immediately after his surgery, he wasn't taken to ICU, he was taken to the ortho floor.
mm,
And so when he was awake and alert, I remember just I was watching him. I was watching him, and I remember like the blankets were taken off to do something, and I was watching him looking at his leg, and I just wanted to make sure that he was okay. And he looked down and he was like, "Oh,"
He
and
like leaned up and looked at it, and I was like,
he was okay. And and I was like, "Okay." I said, "All right, we're past that hurdle. Like, we're okay." He didn't have any, I'm like, "Are you okay? Do you have any questions?" He's like, "No, I'm good."
mm,
Like he was okay with it. So I think that was hearing another family story that their child was really struggling,
mhm.
um, really put some fear in me. But Max was just so okay with it after his surgery. It really helped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. It's interesting. I I wonder if some people would think, "Whoa, you let that decision be Max's," and I think it sounds like you guys were leaning towards that as well, but, like, that's pretty almost, I think some people might be surprised that you let Max have that decision.
Well, I think also if he would have chose to have, the rod put in his leg,
Mhm,
we would have been okay with it because one question that Josh and I did have as well for the plastic surgeon is if he did have the rod, with the knee replacement put in his leg and things didn't work out because we know people where it didn't work out, could he go back and have rotation plasty? And the answer is yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So
there
go ahead.
there there are people
Yeah.
there are patients who did do this endoprosthesis,
Yeah.
this knee replacement with the rod, and they've had complications or it's failed, and they've had revision surgeries, and
Mm.
they've ultimately had an amputation, high
Yeah.
amputation, because
Yeah.
at that point, you're removing a lot of the bone and there's not a lot of bone left.
Yeah.
And so the amputation typically ends up being high. Not all the time, but
Right.
it can, right? And
Right.
so we talked to some families like that.
Yeah.
But knowing that rotationplasty was a potential option if the endoprosthesis failed, was a little reassuring. So we were kind of prepared for any.
Mm.
Here's the thing, right? Is we thought about this a lot. Like, should we let our kid make this decision? And I would just say, like, we didn't let him make this decision. He had a say in it, right?
Yeah.
It's ultimately we. You think about this. What does my child's life look like 30 years later?
Yeah.
Right.
If he has this surgery, what does it look like? If he has this surgery, what
Mm.
does it look like? Right. So we thought about that a lot.
And I think another big factor is Max is gonna be very tall, like 6'1", 6'2".
Mhm.
So, what does that look like surgery-wise for him if he does have the endoprosthesis?
Mm.
How many more surgeries is that for him?
Yeah.
I think that was a factor as well. Do you
Yeah, yeah. I mean that. I think the surgery options boil down to that, like aesthetic versus functionality,
Yeah.
and then how many surgeries you could
Mhm.
potentially have.
Yeah, yeah, and the other observation, in now that I'm, like, processing all this and hearing it from you guys is, his, amputated leg sticks out further than his current knee,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I put it together
Mhm.
that it's because he's gonna grow, and it's gonna be where his knee is around.
Yeah.
Am
Yes.
I right to hear that?
Yeah. So your long bones, I think all bones have growth plates, but specifically the long bones, right? We'll talk about those. The femur
Mhm.
has two growth plates, one on each end. Tibia, same thing.
Mhm.
The growth plate at the top of the femur near the hip doesn't grow as much as the growth plate at the bottom of the femur near the knee.
Got
And it's
it.
the opposite for the tibia. The top growth plate in the tibia grows more than the growth plate down by your ankle.
Okay.
Okay. With rotationplasty, that majority of growth from the femur, that growth plate is taken out, and the growth plate at the top of the tibia that provides most of the growth for the lower leg is taken out. So
Mm.
those major, 80% plus of growth of those long bones is removed. You
Interesting.
get a little bit of growth out of the growth plate down by the ankle, and you get a little bit of growth from the one up by the hip. So
Yeah.
what they do is they did some imaging. It's basically a full body X-ray,
Mhm.
before he had his surgery, to measure his bone growth at his age and predict what his bone growth is going to be after his growth plates close. Right.
Mhm.
So there's a term, skeletally immature, meaning your growth plates are open versus when your growth plates are closed, right? Your bones stop growing at some point, your growth plates solidify, and there's no more new growth. So they do that measurement. And so they predict height and length of bone and all that good stuff. And so one of the orthopedic surgeon's jobs is to determine that center of knee
Mm.
where his ankle is going to be, right? The
Yeah.
center of that joint and, the hip, right? So they do
Mhm.
a measurement and they do a calculation. And so right now, because he's skeletally immature, his growth plates are still open, he's still growing,
Mhm.
but that limb won't grow much longer. They
Interesting.
have to make it longer, and then his other knee center will grow. And so the idea is, those knee centers are offset right now.
Yeah.
And as he grows, this one's not going to grow anymore, but his other limb will grow in. And
Mm.
and they try to calculate that so that alignment is as close as possible.
Right.
Not always perfect,
Right.
et
Sure.
cetera, right? But that's the idea. So that's why his limb is longer
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Same thing for Hendo, right?
Right.
I don't know how old Hendo was when you met him, but he's probably not going to grow much longer. And if you look at
Right.
his knee centers, they're pretty well aligned.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They're closer than like what Max's would be right now.
Mhm. So I don't know that we fully hashed this out, but the tumor was in his femur.
His tumor was in his tibia,
His tibia. So
top of his
that's
tibia.
right below his knee.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is where that was.
So
Okay.
So for osteosarcoma, the most common place is in the long bones. Most common is the distal part of the femur, so the femur close to the knee,
Okay.
or the proximal part of the tibia, the top part of the tibia, or the humerus, the long arm bone.
Okay.
It occurs other places, the sacrum, the spine, the jaw. It can occur many other places, but the large chunk is the femur, tibia, and humerus.
Okay. And so they, when you do this,
Mhm.
they don't keep his knee.
No. So if you think of it like this is the knee joint, right?
Yeah.
They're taking out the femur above the knee and the tibia below the knee and the knee joint. So
Yeah. Right.
all the tendons, ligaments, all that stuff.
Right.
They keep the neurovascular bundle. So the nerve, the vein, and the artery, the main neurovascular bundle that connects the top of the leg to the bottom of the leg. They basically coil it up. So they remove that section of the knee, section of the leg. They preserve that neurovascular bundle. They rotate, reattach the bones.
Yeah.
So the femur and the tibia are reattached. And that neurovascular bundle is coiled up and preserved. Right, so there's no phantom pain. A lot of folks who have amputation, they can suffer from nerve damage and phantom pain. There's none of that with rotationplasty. So that's kind of how it works.
Interesting. Okay, so my next question, and by the way, one strategy that I use is I always cross my fingers. So as I'm hearing your stories, so I don't interrupt, I'll cross my fingers, and then like if I have another thought while you're talking, I'll cross my fingers. So my fingers are crossed twice.
I'll stop.
No, it's fine. Like I can keep tabs by my fingers being crossed. So I can only have up to 4 though. So so my next question, and I'm curious if others are wondering this as we're going as well. So chemo was necessary even though you removed the bone that has the cancer.
Yep.
So I don't quite understand
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
can you explain
Yeah.
that?
So
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead,
No,
Marie.
no, it's okay. Go ahead, Josh.
No,
Josh,
no,
no,
we
I
wanna
love
hear
Josh.
from you
No,
more.
no, go, Josh. Go.
Okay, okay.
So
You're good. Yeah.
the way you treat osteosarcoma is resection of the bone, cutting out the tumor.
Yeah.
That is the treatment.
Right.
If you think back, I touched on this earlier, so I'll revisit it. Is you think of a dandelion, if you blow on a dandelion and it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
This is the theory with osteosarcoma is there's these micrometastases from the main tumor that hit the bloodstream
Hit
and
the
are
bloodstream.
and are floating around the body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the most common place for it to land or reoccur is in the lungs,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a whole different discussion. But the chemotherapy treatment is to stop those dandelion seeds that are floating around the body that may or may not have landed yet.
So is it a guaranteed dandelion effect? Or like did they need to test his blood to see if it was in there or
So this is getting into the fringe of my
that's
knowledge.
okay.
From what I remember, there's not a blood test for osteosarcoma.
Okay.
So you can't draw blood and say there's cancer cells floating around in his blood.
Mhm.
There's something called it's ctDNA, I think it is, circulating tumor DNA. And I'm not sure if there's a test for osteosarcoma, but from my understanding is you can't do a blood test and say there's osteosarcoma floating around in your body,
Sure.
right? The primary diagnosis is through X-ray imaging, ultimately MRI, and then biopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chemotherapy is to kill the remaining cancer in the body that may or may not be floating around and could land like in the lungs.
Got it.
And then quarterly he has like chest CTs and then he has a PET scan.
Okay.
To check and see if it has landed somewhere and started to grow again.
Sure. Okay. And it's obviously a full body CT?
It's just a chest CT,
Oh, just
and
chest.
then but he has a
Okay.
full body PET scan.
So the PET scan,
What's PET scan? Yeah, thank
Mhm.
you.
yeah, so it's positron emission tomography. So
Okay.
they give you a sugar, a glucose that has a radionuclide tracer in it.
Mhm.
Okay, so they give you an
Whoa.
injection. Yeah, it's nuclear pharmacy or
Okay.
whatever. So they give you this injection, and you think what's going to use the most amount of sugar in your body? It's the most active parts of your body. So what they
Uh-huh.
do is they things you never thought your child. So um,
Right.
they're they give the patient fentanyl. It's an option. You can opt out of it,
Okay.
but it's a medically administered dose of fentanyl that's properly calculated to the weight and size of the patient, and
Wow.
this relaxes them. So there's different types of fat in your body. Brown fat is a fat that can uptake this glucose solution with the radioactive tracer in it. And so this calms the body so you're not activating your brown fat. So there's no additional uptake in areas it shouldn't be. Your brain is always active, so there's going to be some accumulation there. Your body's always filtering it, so it accumulates in the bladder. But the idea is to have the patient as calm and relaxed as possible. So they
Mm.
put a warm blanket on you, administered this relaxant medication, and then they take the imaging. And so the radionuclide they give you decays by positron emission. It's a type of radioactive decay. My background is nuclear engineering. I could talk about this forever.
Oh,
But
cool.
anyways, so it's a specific radionuclide that decays by positron emission.
Okay.
And then they put you in a machine that detects that positron emission
Interesting.
and then makes an image. So they actually do a low resolution CT with it, and they overlay the images and all kinds of cool medical things. So that's
Interesting.
that's the bone scan. So if you had a tumor, so let's say those dandelion seeds landed on your femur higher up and a tumor starts to grow, the PET scan would pick something like that up. That's the
Mm.
intent at least. And then
Interesting.
and then the chest CT is specifically to observe the lungs because that's the most common recurrence location.
Mhm.
Got it.
And
Okay.
that's a higher fidelity type scan, right? It's
Mhm.
it's a it's a chest CT that can detect, millimeter size
Mhm.
nodules or growth in the lung.
Hmm. So, I speaking of, with all my surgeries, there's some pretty funny things that I did based on, like, I took a medication before the Arnold Chiari in my neck, and I said some really like, funny things.
Mhm.
Were you around Max when he was on that? And was there anything funny that he ended up saying or doing?
So not before surgeries, but Max, is not very good about coming out of anesthesia.
Oh,
So he,
You
not
you can get funny Max or grumpy Max.
yeah, funny or grumpy,
It's
yeah.
usually grumpy Max.
Yeah, he's usually pretty grumpy. Probably Probably, like, the worst I mean, yeah, probably the worst one was when he had his port taken out. It was a really quick surgery. You weren't there, just I was there, and we don't really keep too much soda in our house, and so
okay.
one of the biggest things is, like, they they let them have, like, before surgery, they're like, "What do you want to drink afterwards?" And he's, like, always like, "Mom, can I have Sprite or Coke?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can pick one, whatever, like, just a little treat afterwards." And he had some choice language for the nurses afterwards when he, gets to have a soda afterwards when he got his poured out, and he's like, "This is the worst place, get me out of here." Like, but it was a little worse than that. But yeah, he's just not very good coming out of anesthesia. And that one, I don't know if that one was just because it was a short surgery,
Mm,
but yeah, sometimes he's funny, sometimes he's not. But the
yeah.
PACU now has an icy machine at Children's, which is a really big hit. So
Okay.
Wait,
yeah.
I really this bad parent moment. I really enjoyed the PACU recovery after anesthesia with Max. I mean, you've been around Max enough. He's always happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in a good mood. He's joking around. So to see him grumpy and angry is really funny to me. Like I try to be as compassionate as possible, but it's really funny.
Yeah, in that episode after having his poured out, it was actually over winter break, and I took him home, and he fell asleep right away, and he woke up, and I was like, "You were not nice to those nurses." And he was like, "He doesn't remember a thing. He does not remember a thing." Yeah, yeah, I mean,
I mean, you have to grasp on these little things and try to find
Some sort of humor.
I mean, I do fi
it keeps us sane,
I
I
mean, I
guess.
personally think it's funny. I don't know if somebody else
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but they're always lovely and great, but yeah,
Mm,
he's just not happy coming out of anesthesia, which is totally opposite of who Max is.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the the treatment,
Mhm.
um, when Max was going through the chemo, let's say
Mhm.
like before rotationplasty,
Mhm.
walk me through like day to day and like you were making a lot of decisions during this time,
Mhm.
obviously, and like what was that like?
Yeah, so we started chemotherapy April 30th, I believe. And so Josh took on the first probably 6 or 7 weeks of chemotherapy because I was still working.
Mm,
I have the summers off, and then I ended up taking FMLA for the rest of his chemo. So
Yeah,
the
my employer was very generous and very kind. You know, as soon as Max got diagnosed, I informed, my management and HR. And so he started, April 30th. Marie's a teacher for an online school, so she
mhm,
gets the summers off, like she said. So like I think middle of June.
yeah, and then
So the first, 6 or so weeks I spent the trips to the hospital with Max.
and his rounds were like inpatient, where usually was like Wednesday through Saturday was kind of what it was. And then the methotrexate is the one that Josh was saying,
That's the long one.
the long one where he needed to have a certain
Concentration. Yeah.
concentration in order to get out of the hospital. So maybe inpatient for methotrexate was Wednesday through Sunday,
mm,
depending on him when he would get out.
mm,
Um,
So we just had to juggle that, right? Like I
Mhm.
was lucky enough to have a understanding, compassionate employer. And then
mhm,
once we got to the summer, Marie kind of took over the inpatient visits, and,
mm,
I returned to work more or less
mhm.
starting then.
yeah, and then I took
So
over June to November.
so it's just, like if it wasn't enough, sorting out and navigating those logistics, and
Mhm.
all the while Will is still going to school, Will is playing soccer, Will is playing tennis, doing all the activities that he wants to
Yeah,
do.
trying to
Yeah.
keep everything as normal as possible for him was, I think, our goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so, it sounds like you guys were fairly in sync with kinda what the plan was, what you guys were going through. What like, going through if you were gonna advise a parent a set of parents that are going through something similar, what would you advise them to keep that chemistry going and making it through? It and maybe another question is I'm sure there were moments where you maybe bashed heads a little bit. I mean, I think that's a natural thing to go through as a
Sure.
husband and wife.
Yeah, it's not rainbows and bunnies, I'll tell you that. You know, I hate to repeat myself, but when your child gets sick, there's actionable things you can do,
Right.
right? When your child gets cancer, there's not a lot you can do. And so like uh you the things you do have an influence on or can make a decision on or can take action on are very small, very
Mm,
limited. And if you don't agree on those, like that can be a problem. And there are certainly things that we didn't agree on or we had different opinions on, and your stress levels are, at a absolute maximum.
sure.
So if you disagree on something, like it could be something very small that gets blown out of proportion very easily.
Right.
And that happens, man. Like it just does. And
Right.
your your coping skills and your de-escalation skills and your your relationship skills are absolutely tested. Like, we've
Mhm.
met families that went through cancer treatment and it ended in divorce. Like,
Mm,
that's a reality. That happens 100%. That
yeah,
is a part of life that really stinks.
yeah,
Um, thankfully we didn't go through that, but we certainly struggled through some parts of it. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. I mean, so what's our advice? It's like, man,
I think it's just the mundane stuff of every day of just communicating,
yeah.
you know? I mean, sometimes it just seems, it just seems so small, but it just seems so necessary, you know, no matter what it is, you know?
Yeah, you have to be transparent. You have to share thoughts and feelings, you know, you, all the good healthy relationship things, right?
mhm.
If your personality will be exposed going through something like this,
Sure,
right? And so you
yeah,
just have to be prepared, right? You'll get through it. It's something that you have to get through. You don't have a choice, right? You
right,
have to get through. You have to push forward. You have to be forward thinking. You can't be reserved. You can't hide emotions, because if you internalize something, you'll show it,
right,
right? And
right,
and then it'll be 10 times worse than if you were a good communicator or an
mhm,
open book or whatever. So I think just man, if anybody's listening who's going through something like this or find themselves in this situation, just be open and transparent and
mhm.
and communicate well. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's sound advice, and the other interesting thing that I always like to think about, regardless of just when going through something hard with somebody,
Mhm.
is if you do make it out the other end, it just and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it just solidifies that bond like
Mhm.
so much more stronger. So I don't know.
We're married and we're in a relationship together because we found attributes in each other that we enjoyed,
Yeah.
and we decided that we wanted to spend our lives with each other, right?
Hmm.
Going through a traumatic experience, like, there aren't a lot of people I can talk to who have been through an experience like this.
Right.
And if anybody knows it as well as I do or better than I do, it's my wife. And so,
Mhm.
like, as weird or as crazy as it sounds, like, we have an additional common ground that we can relate to and lean on each other and depend on each other for, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it did build that other part of our relationship in some weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, Max's journey isn't over.
Mm,
You know, it's still ongoing, and so we're still leaning on each other through it.
mm,
It's not gonna be over for a long time.
mhm. Yeah, and there's always, I mean, just with the rotation plasty in general, if it's one of those things where like he's still getting used to it. He's only 2 years in,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so like there's still a lot of adjustment to be made,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
right, and that's a really good point, right? I mean, I think a good way to think about this is concentric circles, right? There's the cancer part of it, right? All the families we've met who experience cancer, right? There's a smaller circle that have experienced bone cancer or osteosarcoma. There's a
mhm,
smaller circle that are amputees. There's an even smaller circle that are rotationplasty. There's an even smaller circle of all those attributes that play
combined.
adaptive sports,
Oh yeah,
right? Or
mhm,
who play tennis or basketball or amputee, right? So, uh, I think that's one thing that I think about pretty often is finding and building these relationships with people who've had similar experience, and
mhm,
it's been an interesting journey.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna get to that question later. The other question, you said you tried to make it not affect Will as much as possible. Um, obviously, I'm sure that it did affect him.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
It was a exercise in futility, I think.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just remember well, like Josh said, he cued in right away of, when we told them both, is it cancer? So I just remember he struggled right away, and I remember I picked him up from school, like, in that first week or 2, and I just maybe probably that first week, I just didn't really know what to do.
Mm.
And I was just thinking, like, do we need to take him to go see a therapist, Like,
Oh.
I knew that, I knew that Max was gonna be seeing a therapist as inpatient. I didn't know what to do about Max. And so I remember I was pulling out of the school parking lot one day, and and Will just had a bad day at school, and I was leaving, and I saw the school psychiatrist in the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Oh, that's who I need."
Mm.
Like, just to kinda make things normal at school for Will. He was just really struggling. So I remember I got home and I just kind of like, try to going back to kind of like make things normal for Will and just kind of help him get through his day. And I remember I got home and I went to Josh and I was like, I think I'm going to just email her and see if like I can meet with her. So I emailed her and she emailed me back right away. And she's like, I just heard about Max. I'm so sorry. And I said, and she's like, let's just meet tomorrow at 9:15. I said, I emailed her back. I'm like, perfect.
Mm.
So I remember Josh and I met with her and she was just great. And she just trying to make his day, normal at school. She's like, we'll do this. He can come to my office. He can journal. He can come and get away. Our neighbor's actually a teacher at the school. And she was like, he can go to her classroom and like, help with the kindergarten class if he just needs like a breather to, get away from his classmates, just to she was really influential, like, from the beginning, and even from Max, like, my fear was, like, is he gonna pass 4th grade? Is he gonna pass 5th grade? He's gonna miss half the school year, and I remember she told me, she's like, "Don't worry about it." She's like, they're both gonna be fine." And so just from, like, so check done, I knew school was gonna be okay for that year.
Mhm.
She also knew Will was transitioning to the middle school. She, was like, "I'll let his counselor know at the middle school what was going on," and so she kept me in the loop, like, with the counselor there
Mhm.
and to help keeping things normal at school. And then he was really involved in club soccer. We have a really good rec center in our community. I'm really trying to keep him. Both the boys swim. Max still swims as well. But keeping Will involved in the swim team, on the tennis team, in our community, just to keep him around friends. We know the swim coaches really well, just informing them, hey, keep an eye out on him, make sure that he stays okay, make sure he's making good choices in the water and outside of the water. So just really trying to inform everybody, keep a low key eye on him, make sure that he's, okay over that summer.
Mhm.
And then, just kind of transitioning into middle school. It's a big step. I wasn't around. I was very, very involved in their elementary school, volunteered a lot, helped, run a couple things, and I was not involved in middle school at all when he
Mm.
transitioned over. Thank goodness he's very independent, and he did great. Um, so those are just kind of like a couple things to help, kinda keep his normalcy, keep his summer normal, keep things kinda running smoothly the end of the 5th grade for him. Um He's extremely smart. He's in all the high level courses, at school to keep him challenged, to keep his brain moving at school, so hopefully he wasn't always thinking of Max when he was at school, I think was our goal, and then when he went back to school, he continued, I think that's when he transitioned to a new club team, so that kept him going as well,
Mm.
so, yeah.
'Kay.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think like Marie described, just building that support structure around him. Like, yeah, being a sibling, is equally as difficult. He's got to fight for things that he didn't sign up for, right?
Mhm.
So I think personally for me, I think it made me probably a more involved parent, right?
Mhm.
Will is extremely intelligent. He's very independent. And so it's easy to be hands off with him,
Mm.
right? And, going through an evolution like this, like I made an extra point to talk to him a little more, right?
Mm.
It's not like I just ignored him, but I made it a point to talk to him more, right? To ask him questions and let him talk more, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't like, "Hey, how was school today? Good. Okay. Make sure you do your homework." It was,
Right.
hey, let's sit down, like just you and I.
Mm,
Um, and I had always tried to make it a point to do that with both of our boys is, try to get independent time because they are so close in age. They always played sports on the same team. We were always doing the same activities together. We were always together.
mhm.
The boys didn't get a lot of independent time with mom or dad. They did, we tried to make an effort to do it, but it just wasn't always possible. But
Sure.
this really, for me, sparked that opportunity. It was, and Marie and I talked about this. It's like, hey, Marie, why don't you take Will to the grocery store with you? Like, present it to him as like, hey, I need some help. But really, the objective was for him to get alone because you know when we're in the hospital, when Max is going through treatment, all focus is on him,
Sure.
right? We miss some good night hugs and kisses, right?
Mhm.
We miss some soccer games, right? We miss some appointments. We miss some things, right? Like if I'm in the hospital with Max and Will had a band concert, I would miss that. If Marie was in the hospital with Max and I'm taking Will to a soccer game, Marie misses that, right? He didn't ask for that. He didn't sign up for that. So making a conscious effort to make sure he knew that he was still loved and still had attention and we still had some focus for him, I think was a big part of it as well.
Mhm.
And I think we still find he's pretty passive with Max as well. Like, hey, Will, what do you want to do for dinner? Whatever Max wants.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay, I understand that, but I'm asking, what do you want to do for
Mm,
dinner?
Yeah.
Or if he has a great soccer game or just like a great day in general, like, hey, you get to pick. Oh, I don't care. What does Max want?
mm,
I get that, but like, I'm asking you, what do you want?
mm,
So we really, I think we really tried to make it very even with the boys, and so I'm like, "Okay, I asked Max a couple days ago, I'm asking you."
mm,
Like, Max had his turn, now it's your turn. But he still, rebuffs to Max quite a bit.
mm.
Yeah,
So
so making sure that he's heard and he gets an opinion and he gets a say in things. We've focused on that too.
mhm.
It's pretty cool that it sounds like Will was very selfless
Yeah.
during this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, big
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah, he definitely was.
Yeah, and the other thing, yeah, I have 2 older siblings, and, like, I don't know, as hard as maybe me having spina bifida was on them, they were also a blessing in disguise, right? Like, Will, it sounds like he was able to be there for Max as well and kinda, I don't know, just be that sibling, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, Max or Will would come to the hospital and they would play chess together
Oh,
or
cool.
yeah, just watch soccer or it was the Xbox was actually kind of nice. Max would be in the hospital playing, Will would be at home. They could play together that way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they could be
Another thing that earlier generations, didn't get to experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just had to find those things that facilitated, those interactions and, you know, that sibling bonding and relationship that, they they got robbed of.
Mhm. So, let's get into the point of rotationplasty
Mhm.
and and all that. May I ask, like, what scared you the most about going through rotationplasty? Not once you made that decision.
Mhm.
Mm, mm. It's a major surgery, right? It is
Yeah.
it is a massive surgery, and with any major surgery, there are complications. I mean, there was
Mhm.
a non-zero probability that it wasn't successful. We've met other families that had complications. Maybe they had nerve damage, and that joint is
Mm.
not functional,
Oh.
right? Um, so that's a thing, right? Um, and you know, he's a kid. He's got a long life ahead of him.
Mhm.
Um, so what is he gonna think about it when he's 30 years old?
Sure.
Mhm.
Right? Is he going to resent us? Right?
Mhm.
Is he going to be angry? Is he going to, have the discussion with us? Why didn't we guide him in a different direction, right?
Right.
Um, how is he going to handle other people, you know, staring at him and looking at him and bullying him? When we first started going out in public, he didn't have his prosthetic and he's on crutches.
Mm.
And you can, if he was wearing long pants, we'd roll him up and, you know, you couldn't see his residual limb. But like in summer and he's in shorts, he'd put a sock on it, but you could see it and people were looking at him, right? And
Mhm.
I didn't know how to deal with that. So like I'm mean mugging people, like staring back at them. Like,
Yeah.
is that the right thing to do?
Right.
Probably not. It's probably not the healthiest or most constructive thing, but like it's your child and you're
Yeah.
protective and
Mhm.
you like don't want people to stare at your child, right?
Mhm.
So like how is he individually and personally going to deal with that?
Yeah.
How much does he care about that, right?
Mhm.
How much is that going to impact him? Is he going to want to go in public?
Mm.
Let alone how will he deal with scrutiny or judgment or people look little kids have no reserve, right? I'm
No.
sure you know this.
Yeah, of course.
A 4-year-old kid sees like we went to the pool one time and Max is like, "Let's go swimming. I don't care. Whatever." Right? Just went to the public pool and there's a little 4-year-old kid staring at his leg, right?
Mhm.
How is he going to handle that? So like now we're having conversations with Max. Like I've had several conversations with Max. Like, "Hey, how does it feel when somebody stares at you? What does that make you feel like?
Mm.
Um, what are you going to do about it?"
Mm.
Right?
And his
How
yeah.
are you going to react to that? Do you want to say something to somebody? And so I'll ask these questions and he'll share his thoughts. And um, we had a discussion. He was like, "I just don't know why they stare so long." And so
Mm.
then we have this conversation. There's 4-year-old kids. They don't know any better. Right?
Right.
So you have an option. You can just ignore them. You can walk away. You can do whatever. Or you can say, "Hi,
Mm.
what's your name?"
Mhm.
Because what do you do if your leg didn't look like that and a 4-year-old kid was staring at you, what would your interaction be?
Mhm.
Just treat it like that. Say hi. Ask them
Yeah.
what and so he started to do that a little bit, and I think that helps, right? And so being you had mentioned this earlier, being new to it, like we don't know what we're doing, right?
Sure.
This is a new part of our life too. So it's trying to find these approaches that we think will guide him through life.
Mhm.
Somebody stares at you, say hi, introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's you can tell me. Is that the right approach? Should I be telling my son to do I mean, you see sports, you see, you know, adaptive sports, you see, this initiative to normalize it,
Mhm.
uh like should should we be encouraging our son to normalize it and interact with people? I don't know. Like, so it's all of that, right?
Mhm.
It's hey, how is Max going to navigate life now? And are we guiding him in the right direction how to navigate life?
Mm.
I don't know. Like,
And he'll
I don't know
talk about it, after his, when he was done with chemotherapy, we had done a little vacation and we were at an aquarium. I don't know if you remember this, but he was still in his wheelchair. He didn't have his prosthetic.
Mhm.
And I had pushed him up to like the glass of the aquarium and he stood up. So he was standing on, his right leg and I had backed up and these little kids had come up to me and they're like, "Hey, are you his mom? He has one leg." And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "What happened?"
Mm.
And I said, "Oh," I said, "he had a disease in his leg and they had to, cut a portion of his leg off." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." They were probably 5 or 6. And they're like, "Did it hurt?" And I was like,
Mm.
"I don't know." I said, "You have to go talk to him." So
Mhm.
they went up to Max and they had a conversation with him. So
Yeah.
Max is willing to talk about it, right? So
Mhm.
I think, he's willing to talk about it. So I think, kind of what Josh is talking about, like, just say hi,
Mhm.
have that conversation. I don't know. I mean, I personally think that's a good way to approach it, if someone is staring. But I also think people just don't know what to say or they don't know how to start that conversation.
Right.
Like, how do you start that conversation?
Right. Right.
I noticed when we were at tennis the other night, I was kind of sitting back and reading my book, and there's a couple, and they're always sitting there watching their son on the other court. But there was a gentleman that was watching his child on the other court that I'd never seen there before. And Max was doing his standing tennis, and then he went over to the wheelchair and took his leg off. And the couple that are always there, like, didn't phase them. They'd seen Max before.
Mhm.
But this other gentleman, when Max took his leg off, was just like staring,
Yeah.
like, and like, and it's fine, right?
Right.
But I just think it was something new.
Mhm.
But I feel like he just wanted to ask questions. Like,
Mhm.
okay, there was some, he's an amputee, but his leg's backwards.
Yeah.
Like, I think people have a lot of questions about that,
Yeah.
But I would love, I want people to ask questions. Like, they're not hurting our feelings if they have questions, because like, we want to educate a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Max wants to would love to educate a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I absolutely, and I think, I know people have gotten in really traumatic disabilities, right?
right,
So it's like, I don't know if this person has had this traumatic
right.
disability. I don't know how they're gonna react. So I think it's appropriate to tread lightly. Maybe get to know the person first or
Yeah.
something like that. But I personally, I invite any sort of questions. I look
Mhm.
at it as you asking me questions about my disability is like you getting to know a piece of who I am.
Right.
So it's very I'm fine with that. But I don't think it's necessarily bad for a stranger to be like, "Hey, do you mind me asking what happened?" And somebody might just say, I fell off of a four-story building or something like that, right? And they don't know that it's and then maybe don't push after that if they don't elaborate, right?
Mhm.
Like, but if they do elaborate, it's like, okay, maybe I can ask a little bit more, a little bit more in depth
Mhm.
questions. The other thing, and I would very much encourage you both to listen to my parents' podcast once it comes
Yeah.
out, because there's so many correlations of like my mom has a story about me as a kid and somebody staring at me, and she I won't spoil the punchline, but essentially she taught me early on to not be ashamed of who I am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the fact that Josh, you were asking Max questions about, hey, how do you approach that, instead of saying something like, "Oh, can you believe those people are staring? Like, how
Yeah.
rude." And that ingrains in that child early on to be offended by it, or
Yeah.
be, like, irritated about that, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
So, I look at staring as, I don't think someone staring is offensive. I look at it as they're very curious. Like, how
100%.
often, like I said, I've only met 2 people that have rotationplasty, and I've
Mhm.
been in adaptive sports my entire life.
Mhm.
And so it's like, how often do you see
Yeah.
somebody with a backwards foot? And so it's like, I don't look at it as offensive. I look at it as curiosity,
Yeah.
and like, as kinda you alluded to, they don't know necessarily how to approach that
Mhm.
situation, because I think we're all trained early on. Like, what do parents do when like, I'm sure you've experienced this, but like if you're out in public and they're like, a little kid's like, "Mommy, look at that, Daddy, look at that." The parents, most of the parents' reactions immediately are shushing the kid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so you learn early on that, oh, this is a taboo
Right. Right.
topic to
Right.
talk about, and I shouldn't approach it. So this is
Mhm.
something that I get into with my podcast all the time, and it's a fascinating conversation to have.
Yeah, well, I've noticed it even at like wheelchair basketball. We're around a lot of kids in wheelchairs, and
Yeah.
like Henry and Max are the only two that I've seen so far, with rotationplasty. But a lot of little kids are like, "Mom, his foot's backwards," and that's their parents' first reaction is like, "Shh." I'm like, and I just want to turn around and be like, "It's okay, you can ask,"
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
I'll talk about it. I'm his mom. What questions do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly, as soon as I hear kids say that and their
Mhm.
parents shushes them, I will instantly go up and start talking to the kid about
Yeah.
my disability, and like, kinda, be like, "Wanna race?" or crack,
Yeah. Right.
like, a few jokes. Like, I can walk, and so I'll be like, "Ah, I can walk. I waddle kinda like a penguin, though." So, and they're, I make it fun and funny, and then, recently, I've been just, once that conversation is over, and I'll just look at the parent and I'll say, I love your kid's curiosity.
Yeah.
And so it's like an open, it's like, "Oh, okay, great." Like, I don't have to be super concerned that my kid just asked this
Mhm.
taboo, the societally taboo question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So how do we as a society like overcome that? Like how do like those parents think they're doing the right thing by
mhm,
shushing their child?
mhm.
Okay. How do you break that? Like you individually have, approached that situation in a specific way to help address that.
Yeah,
Right. But that's a drop of water in the ocean.
yeah.
Right. How do we like mandatory screening of murder ball?
Right, right.
Like what breaks people out of that mentality that they shouldn't ask questions or be curious?
So I think it's a double-edged sword
Mhm.
because again, if you go up to somebody and you ask them who maybe they're like just got out of rehab and they went through something insanely traumatic,
Mhm.
and you go up to them and you say, "Hey, what happened? Can I ask?" Like that could be
Yeah.
pretty detrimental to that person potentially to
Right.
revisit that
Yeah.
or
Right.
something like that.
Mm.
So I I think it's an appropriate response to tread carefully in those
Mhm.
situations. And in a situation where, you're out in public and you're just walking by a kid who says that, the it's one of those things where, like, somebody brought up on my podcast, a couple episodes ago, something along the lines of like, well, maybe they're shushing their kid now because it's maybe not appropriate to do that. But then in the car ride home, maybe they're having that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I never really thought of. Like, and hopefully, and I don't think this is necessarily happening, but hopefully they're having a conversation with the kid about how to appropriately talk about that.
Mhm.
Um, I think initially, if you're like, "Hey, do you mind me asking what happened?" and the person says no, or like gives you a short
Mhm.
answer, then you drop it at that point. Um, so I, I've said this too, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think it's on the disabled community to spread that awareness, right? Like I think it would be doing a disservice to the disabled community if I heard that kid and I just kept going and didn't say anything,
Mhm.
right? So the other thing that I think about all the time is like not everybody knows somebody who's disabled, right?
Yeah.
And so like just the unknown factor of not knowing how to interact with that person, and I think approaching it with a sense of curiosity is really good. But like if I'm an able-bodied person, I don't know anybody who is disabled, I have other priorities in my life. Like I mean, Max has cancer, right? So what if their mom died of cancer and they want to spend most of their time in awareness on researching and looking into cancer and trying to spread awareness and stuff like that,
Yeah.
versus looking into disabilities and how to respond and stuff like that. I think those are both very justifiable points. So
Sure.
I to answer your question, I don't think we're ever going to get a point in a society to that will relieve us of that responsibility. And I think there's always going to be somebody that's going to have that curiosity. And honestly, that's one of the motivators for me starting this podcast is because I do want people to be curious. I
Mhm.
do want people to understand the disabled community a little bit better. So anyway.
I
Yeah.
I I think you made a couple really good points there, right? Like your example about if someone has gone through a traumatic scenario and a curious person walks up and starts asking them questions that could, you know, potentially mm, trigger memories of that traumatic scenario, right? So, how do you address that? Well, I mean, maybe it's just social cues, right? If
Mhm.
if if you're curious and you're looking at someone and they make eye contact back and it's receptive, and that's an indicator that a discussion is open. If you're staring at somebody and they just keep walking and you say something to them and they're minding their own business and they keep walking, right? Like,
Mhm.
I know it's very difficult, right? This is
Yeah.
a social interaction that is that is not common. And to that point, you said you made a good point that there may be able bodied people who have not spent time around the disabled community at all. And as you were saying that, Max had his amputation. I was a 42-year-old man.
Mhm.
I didn't think about these things,
Right.
right? Like, I am that person you just described
Mhm.
for 42 years of my life.
Mhm.
I did not spend, I had a friend in childhood who had a sibling who had Down syndrome, right?
Mhm.
That was probably the extent of my exposure.
Mhm.
I just a topic I didn't. So, in you answering my question, I'm reflecting on myself thinking, wow, what did I do for 42 years and why didn't I think about this more? Why didn't I interact with this community more?
Mhm.
It's just, I guess that's just how life works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, people have different priorities, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You wanna focus on the priorities that are in your life
Yeah.
and are around you already, right?
Yeah.
And if there's not a disabled person that is inspiring you to look into something disability oriented, then why would you?
Mhm.
We can get mad about that, but again, like that, the priorities of like, their mom dying of cancer and wanting to spread awareness about that versus disability.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they're both great.
And to the point, just along with the theme, right? That person whose mother died of cancer, they probably spent the majority of their life not advocating for
True.
cancer awareness. So I think my point is like, and it's a little introspective and I don't know, not depressing, discouraging. Like, a lot of people don't take action unless it personally impacts them,
Yeah,
and that's just a reality, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
So how do you compel someone to be actionable or an advocate of something that doesn't directly impact their personal life?
yeah.
That's hard.
Well, yeah, and for me, I think it's one person at a time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and again, maybe it's multiple people at a time with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like people, I told you before the podcast, people are certainly curious about Hendo's rotationplasty, and that's so great that's increasing awareness, and people have actually commented and asked questions that I didn't think of, and like I sent it to Hendo and was like, "Hey, is my response good?" And then I copied and pasted Hendo's response to it, and so
So
it's like,
yeah.
just increasing that awareness and getting people curious. I think getting people to understand that curiosity is okay.
Yeah.
Staring is always uncomfortable, so maybe go up and talk to the person yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you are in that frame of mind. So, there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up.
Did you cross your fingers?
I did, but I lost it, and so I uncrossed my fingers. So,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal, but, I'm sure if it's important enough, I'll get to it eventually. Real quick, I'm curious, because I really enjoy this, just asking people this, like, midway through the
Mm.
podcast. How long do you think we've been going for without looking at the time?
An hour and 15 minutes.
I looked at the clock recently.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Too
lot.
recent to not answer this well.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's 1 p.m.
It's it is 1:05
Are you
PM, yes.
serious?
We've
Oh my god.
been going for 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
You're a good
always
host.
well, thank you.
Yes.
It always baffles me how long we've been going because, like, whenever I'm like, "Hey, give me 2 to 3 hours for the
Oh my
podcast," people are
gosh.
like, "Oh my gosh, there's no
No
way I'm gonna
way.
talk for that long."
Yeah.
And the majority of this, we've been
Yeah.
talking about
Eh,
Max and
yeah.
his rotation
And I've
plan.
only cried 5 times. So great.
You hit the under on my bet.
On the under. That's great.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're so nice.
Jo
Did you bet with the boys?
No.
Josh and I were talking about before the pod. No,
Oh.
um, okay, so I that's a fascinating discussion about curiosity and like what to do about it societally and
Mhm.
yeah again like you know you mentioned like them watching Murder Ball and I'll go back to this for a quick second but again like Murder Ball and increasing the awareness about disability through that versus again something else that somebody is passionate about I just it's like I think we have the freedom of choice for a reason, and
Yeah.
like everybody has different skills and talents and things that they want to work on in life, and I think that's awesome. So anyway, um, the going back to the rotation plasty, um, was there was there any risks that like now that he's had it that you're like, oh man, I really wish someone would have told me about this.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
So
There's a lot that happened.
Yeah,
so
Yeah. And I don't mean to laugh, but, like, if I don't laugh, honestly, through a lot of this, I would cry again.
sure.
I
So
I was told by a person multiple things, and I won't share them because it was a private conversation. Uh, but one of the things that they mentioned was, there could be a journal article written about Max, and that's because I think his experience and some of the complications he had were edge cases.
Oh,
And so that's a if you ask that question to 99 other rotationplasty patients or parents, I think you would not get the same answer you would get from us.
sure.
And that's because I think didn't Max had an atypical experience with the procedure. Um, in the end, it turned out okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's kind of results oriented though.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, I think some of the complications that Max had, there was some hand waving or some glossing over,
Mm.
right? So he experienced compartment syndrome, and compartment syndrome is a complication that's associated with many surgeries and many major surgeries, and it's always there. And I read that, right? I read that compartment syndrome is a possible complication with this surgery, but I didn't think about it. I didn't
Mm.
I didn't fully grasp it or understand it. And so I think just in general, I think general advice, I guess if you could consider it that, is just be prepared for any outcome, right?
Mm.
Cuz I don't think we were properly prepared, right? Max had that 9-hour surgery and then 12 hours later he's back in for another 6-hour surgery. I don't think we had talked to anybody else
You
who
had
had,
that.
who had experienced it like that.
Mm.
But it's a complication that's part of the surgery. It does happen, right?
Mhm.
So I like to I like to tell my friends I'm the unluckiest person they've ever met. Like this is just one of those things. Like, yeah, no crap that happened.
Mm.
Of course it did. It's the curse of my family. But
Mm.
anyway, so it's not that somebody didn't tell us. I think in our specific scenario, the complications that Max had, we didn't give appropriate weight to, but we also didn't have a crystal ball, right? The typical experience in this process would not include the path that Max had to go down.
Yeah.
So like it's preparing for the unknowns,
Mhm.
the real small probability things Max just got unlucky with.
Mm.
So I don't know. There's a lot of good information out there. There's a woman at Indiana University,
Janet.
yeah, who puts out um, what's called a decision guide. And so once you get a diagnosis for osteosarcoma, it addresses the orthopedic decision process. So all the stuff we just talked about surgery options and which one you pick and why you would pick it and benefits and cons. She puts out a guide to help um, people navigate that decision process. And
Mm,
it's very thorough and it has a lot of good information. And it does talk about like things like surgery complications. It talks about outcomes from surgery. It talks about lifestyle after amputation, endoprosthesis, or rotationplasty. So there's a ton of good information like that out there.
mm,
So the community and she curated that from the community, right? Interviewing people, talking to people, getting ideas, getting experiences. And so it's good. So I think to answer your question, like our specific scenario, I wish I would have spent more time considering complications or possible outcomes.
mm.
But like there's no way I would have known, right?
Right.
And that probably would have been wasted effort and angst and stress and
Mhm.
anxiety,
Yeah.
but we ultimately had to go through it, right? So
Mm.
I don't know. I because it's an edge case, because it was edge case after edge case after edge case, I wouldn't advise others to spend too much mental capacity on pairing or considering those scenarios. It just doesn't happen. So
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a weird question because of the the experience that we had.
Sure.
Most people would be an easy question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't-
I didn't expect it to be necessarily easy, so
yeah, no, no.
what Marie, do you have anything else to add or
No.
no? Okay. Moving on. Okay, so you did a bunch of research, you talked to a whole bunch of people.
I read a bunch of other people's research. I don't have a lab where I do research.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's yeah. Did you were there disagreements with like any doctors you talked to or anything like that?
No.
No.
Disagreements?
Well, in what context? The surgery?
I guess anything that was happening throughout all that. Like I mean, sometimes, and I don't know if this was the case here, but I mean, clearly you had a bunch of doctors that you did talk to, but, some people go through and get a second opinion and
Yeah, well,
stuff like
so
that.
there was a stage for Max where, he had to have a revision surgery on his leg in October of 24. He was playing tennis with you at the time, and
Yep.
he had to have a revision surgery. So at that point, we did go and get some second opinion somewhere else, just to see if everybody was really on the same page with, what the, orthopedic oncologist at Cincinnati Children's, was gonna go through with. And for the most part, everybody was, and, we had trust in the orthopedic oncologist at Cincinnati Children's,
Mhm.
and so we ended up staying with him. But at that point was when we did go get a second opinion just to see what others were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't any argument or anything, but we just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that, cross our T's, dot our I's. What do
Right.
you think about that?
I mean, for the most part, right, the treatment, like I said, it's been the same treatment for 40 years. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
more or less cookie cutter unless you run into, complications or you have recurrent disease or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And so for the most part, yeah, there really wasn't an opportunity to like disagree with what
Mhm.
Sure.
the doctors had said or recommended because like that's just what you do. You do
Mhm.
chemo, you have surgery, you do more chemo and you're done, right? Like
Mhm.
this is just what it is.
Yeah.
So if he had, you know, if treatment had responded as well or it wasn't effective,
Mhm.
right? That's when you get into scenarios where they can change the chemo on the second part of it. And
Mhm.
so, we've met other families that, they suggested clinical trials or they had to discuss clinical trials with
Mhm.
their doctor and had to, go through enrollment or, maybe the doctor said, "Hey, you're not a good candidate for this clinical trial." And then they, sought a second or third opinion on it.
Mhm.
And you can self-enroll in some of these clinical trials, right? There's a lot of variance there.
Mhm.
Max's variance was mostly in, the recovery from his surgery, right?
Mhm.
Going through the chemo part of it, going through the initial surgery, that was all pretty straightforward. So there weren't a lot of scenarios where, there was disagreement or
Mm,
lack of trust or confidence in the medical professionals, right?
mm,
We did seek second, like Marie said, we did seek some second opinions. But that was, pretty far down the road in a
Yeah.
very
sure.
specific scenario that we didn't anticipate. So I think, advocating for our child, like getting a second opinion was necessary.
Mhm.
When I first talked to that medical oncologist, when he called me and I got that call from the block number at 9:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked the guy straight up, like, I don't know anything about sarcoma. I don't know anything about osteosarcoma. I don't know anything about sarcoma centers. I don't
Mm,
know anything about medical oncologist. I don't know anything about you. I never heard your name before in my life, right?
mhm.
Uh, is Max getting treatment at Cincinnati Children's the best possible option we have? Is there another place
Mm,
that can treat Max that would be better for him? And he straight up said, "Hey, I'm here for a reason, right? I could be an oncologist at any hospital I want. I came
mhm,
here for a reason.
mm,
I have, the most conviction in working here and treating patients here because this is where I think, I'm most effective in doing my work as an oncologist."
mm,
I'm like, "That's awesome." He's like, "If you find another place that will treat Max better or you think is a better option for Max, we will fully support it. We'll work on the transfer. We'll share all information as we would. But I can't name a place."
mm,
And in I didn't know it at the time, but he was absolutely right. And at the
mhm,
time, I just had to take his word for it because he's the professional. He's the director of the sarcoma center. I mean, he's the guy, right? So I
mhm.
had to listen and I had to trust him at the time. But even looking back on it, like, he's absolutely right. It's very standardized treatment. It wasn't going to be any different anywhere else.
Mhm.
Um, so like just based on you know those facts and that scenario, like there just wasn't much to disagree with.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
If it wasn't a sarcoma center, right? If it wasn't a children's hospital that specialized in treating sarcoma, it would have been a different scenario, right? If we
Mhm.
lived in rural Ohio, we're absolutely moving and getting a second opinion and getting treatment at a different place and all that good stuff.
Mhm. So you talked about when Max kind of like looked at his leg,
Mhm.
like after the surgery
Mhm.
and stuff like that. When like I feel like for me, a lot of things don't really hit me until it happens. Did that w- 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 did that happen? Like, when did it hit you that this was like actually a thing? Like, was it before like when you made the decision, or what was it actually like when you actually saw Max's leg?
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, I think the mourning process really started early on for me when we made the decision.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember so it was kind of random. He started having pain on March 19th. He was diagnosed April 19th. His surgery was July 19th.
Wow.
So and I remember I really started having trouble June 19th, like a month before his surgery. I remember talking to our neighbor on that day, and I'm just like, "It's hitting me," like, it's a month away. And so, I think I started the mourning process for him losing his leg before his actual surgery.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was definitely beforehand, I was definitely preparing myself. And also, it was just, like, all an emotional time. His chemo, that was also about the time during chemotherapy where his appetite just didn't come back.
Oh.
He was really losing a lot of weight, so we were worried that he was gonna have to have, like, a feeding tube.
Oh.
And so there was just a lot going on as
Can you
well.
closer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you. No.
So, he is it was just a lot, and so, yeah, his appetite hadn't come back. His clothes were just really falling off of him, so we had actually, we're really working with, like, the nutritionist and the doctor, at the hospital for getting him on appetite stimulant for before his surgery, so he would make sure that he could get on some weight before surgery. So I remember specifically, it was exactly a month before his surgery where I was starting to really it hit me, and I think I started mourning, like, a month before.
Mm.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I tried to be forward thinking, right? Max was pretty resolute in his decision, like I
Yeah.
described earlier, and we had to be right. That was it. Let's go. So I tried to be forward thinking, right? Like leading up to the surgery, just keeping the next thing in focus and thinking forward. What's the next after that? What's the next after that?
Mhm.
Once he got out of the ICU and started to recover, he started chemotherapy back up right away, and they only give you about a week break. He had like a 2-week break just because some of the complications he had, but you start chemotherapy back up, right? And so you just have to be thinking about that. What's next? What are we
Mhm.
doing next? What's the next appointment we have to be at? Where do we have to be? What time, right? And so, you know, he had this wound vac. We had to do a bunch of wound care at home. So we're intimately involved in this new leg he has. So you're always kind of thinking about it, but I don't think it really set in until like we started the fitting for a prosthetic and getting out and about in public and him moving around on crutches,
Mhm.
or taking a wheelchair out, right? That's when
Mhm.
it really sets in. It's like this this is this is his new leg. This is what his new life is going to involve, and what can we do to make it easier for him, or help guide him through this, or figure it all out.
Mhm.
I think it was then, once some of the cloudy parts cleared up, and we were once he got fit for a prosthetic, you're thinking forward, right?
Mhm.
Okay, after he gets this, he's gonna have to get used to putting it on. Then after that, he's gonna have to get used to walking in it. Then he's gonna have to get used to wearing it for an extended amount of time.
Mhm.
Then he's gonna have to learn how to run, and then he's gonna have to work on his gait, and then he's gonna have to learn how to shuffle sideways so he can chase, you know,
Tennis balls.
yeah, tennis balls down, right? Exactly. So I think, yeah, it really set in when we started going through that process of thinking what was next, and
Mm.
and what he's going to be doing next.
Mm. Um, so, okay, so let's talk after the surgery. So what did so he went through another 5 weeks of chemotherapy, and that is that's
5
right?
month 5 months.
5 months?
Well, so July to December, so however many months that was.
So
So wait, it's 5 months of chemo before and then 5 months after, or
so
5?
2 rounds.
so hold on. So each round
Mhm.
is 5 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
Is that right? Yeah, 5 weeks. And so we had 2 rounds,
Yep.
so 10 weeks of chemo.
One after, one before.
No, so he had 10 weeks of chemo,
Yeah,
2 rounds,
yeah.
surgery, and then 4 more rounds of chemo.
Oh,
So
okay.
20 more weeks of
Yeah.
chemo.
Okay,
Yeah, so he's done.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think I was confusing there's 5 weeks, a break, and then 5 weeks. I think I was confusing that he had the rotationplasty during that time. So, okay, got
10,
it.
10 weeks of chemo,
Yeah.
surgery, and then another 20 weeks of chemo.
Mhm.
Jeez, 20 weeks so 30 weeks total of chemo.
And so the crazy part about that is, right, you're immunosuppressed. And so like his incision didn't close
Yeah,
ever,
yeah,
right? So you have surgery, and then you have chemo, and then he just has this open wound on his leg. It
yeah.
was
Mhm.
gnarly, right? And not until he finished chemo does the incision start to seal up.
Wow,
And so like you're done with chemo, and the surgery is long in the past, but you're still healing from it. So
wow.
he's he's experiencing the residual effects of chemotherapy. His wound is finally starting to heal. He's weak, he's tired, he's all these things. But treatment's over, right?
Mhm.
You're no longer going to the hospital every week. That was another pretty surreal experience. Was treatment's done, right? All these nurses and doctors that you intimately know because you see them for so much time
Yeah,
over such a long period. It just stops.
yeah,
Right? There's a definitive endpoint of finishing chemotherapy. That
yeah.
that routine that you're just getting used to is now gone, and now you're healing.
Mhm.
Mhm. Interesting. Um, So wow. So he went through 20 weeks of chemotherapy. His or after the rotationplasty.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
His foot the entire time wasn't healing. Or it was healing some, I
The
assume, but
leg's
like
not healing. So
yeah,
the surgery involves basically putting the tibia and the femur together,
yeah.
and then a metal plate with screws on it to hold it together. Okay,
Wow.
and then those bones grow together. They fuse together. They
Oh,
union.
interesting.
But that wasn't happening
Yeah,
mostly because he was on chemotherapy, and there's just no growth there. So not only is it, the bones aren't growing together, so he can't be weight bearing on that leg yet, but the incisions aren't growing together. So it's
is he in the hospital for the entire 20 weeks?
No.
He was
So
home.
he still follows the chemo schedule. Usually, like the Wednesday through Saturday or Wednesday through Sunday, and then
Yeah,
off days we would come home.
yeah.
Unless he would pop a fever, then we would go back.
Right, right.
every week out of those 20 weeks, he was in the hospital 4 days or more,
Mhm.
Right.
4 to 6 days. I mean, there was one treatment that he got where he didn't clear methotrexate until the day before he had to start the next one. So
Mhm.
basically, we went home for like 12 hours,
Wow.
and then went right back into the hospital.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Mhm.
all this treatment was inpatient,
Yeah.
and this isn't atypical, but not everybody has this experience. Some kids clear chemotherapy quicker than others.
Right.
Some don't get as sick as others. Max got pretty chemo sick.
Mhm.
In his off days, he did, pop that fever and have to go back into the emergency
Mhm.
room.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you're in there for a couple days because they give you antibiotics, and then they're doing a bunch of blood tests, and they're making sure that you don't actually have an infection. So
Yeah.
that's usually a 3 or 4 day stay before you
Yeah.
get discharged again. So
Right.
a lot of time in the hospital.
Wow.
Mhm.
Not out of those 20 weeks, what is that? 140 days. I'd say he was probably in the hospital 100 of those days.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I remember during the fall there was like a 13-week stretch, and out of that 13 weeks, 12 of those he was in the hospital for at least some of those weeks
Wow.
or some of those days. Yeah. So yeah, the fall was a rough stretch. I think that's why he just that last round of chemo he was just done for.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's like, Mom, I just don't want to go."
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, so what what during the after and the chemo and all that, like what I guess maybe there's a two-parter, but like what adaptations did you have to make? I assume he didn't have his prosthetics, and then like what was kind of Max going through during that time?
Man.
so what did we do at home to
He
adapt?
he wanted to be in his bed. He wanted to be in his room. I had actually moved a
Yeah,
bed down into our dining room and like moved our dining table and chairs. And
he didn't
he
want.
got home and he was like, "Nope,
Nope, he wants to be upstairs.
want to be in my room."
Yeah,
So
we
he had to learn to navigate stairs,
so we
which
worked.
was
But
fine.
yeah, we talked with the physical therapists were great, and so we had heard a couple different things from some people who had been through the process of rotation plasty of like, oh no, my kid's gonna use crutches to go up the stairs, right when we get home, and then other people are like, they're gonna, you know,
They all end up crawling.
yeah, the
Yeah.
scoot up the stairs with their butt. Well, Max came home with a wound back. And so he had to scoot up the stairs on his butt. So we just did that, and then he wanted to sleep in his own bed, be in his room, yeah. So we didn't do anything really.
Set up a TV and put his Xbox in his
Yeah,
room,
that's what
which
we
I
did.
swore against ever doing.
Yeah, because usually the boys play in the basement. So like just navigating to the basement and then the other stairs up to his room was just too much. So we didn't do anything. And then what was the second part? How was Max?
How was he
What
through?
kind of like what was he going through?
Yeah, so he it was around the holidays, so he just really wanted to be around family. He was just really excited to be around family.
Mm,
He finished chemo he got discharged the first Saturday of December. And so the semester, the quarter was just ending. So
mm,
I think we were able to get him to school maybe a couple days. He wanted to be around friends and the school was fantastic.
Yeah, he did
Um
a couple half days in December, but
yeah, a couple half days in December, but he just was excited to be around people. At the time, his best friend had lived across the street, so there were just a handful of times where they could, like, meet outside and be around each other, but other than his best friend and, us, like, in the hospital staff, he wasn't around anybody.
Mm,
But, yeah, he was excited to be around people, and he wanted to see family at Christmas. So
great.
our goal was just to really keep him healthy so he could be around family and friends at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's kind of what he was feeling. He just wanted to be around people.
Sure.
Yeah, Max doesn't share a lot of emotions,
No.
so
No.
we worry about him quite a bit, especially during those times, right? Like
Mhm.
lots of one word answers, "Hey Max, how are you feeling? Fine. What's on your mind? Are you sad about anything? Are you unhappy? No, no, no." So,
Mm.
I mean, back to like, how we approached Will, we made a concerted effort to ask Max what his mental state was like as much as we could.
Yeah.
We utilized some resources at Children's
Yeah.
Hospital for a therapist and had to meet with a therapist a few times, and
Mhm.
even she was kind of like, I you know, I'm not sure how much he's getting out of these sessions. He seems to be,
It's more therapy session for Josh and I than it was for Max
yeah.
times.
So, on the surface, he did pretty well.
Mhm.
But we always questioned it. We always kind of had conversations with each other. We're like, hey, the last time you talked to Max, or when you talked to Max today, like, w- what do you think? Like, how
Mhm.
how did he respond to you? How did he talk to you? And so, um, yeah, we thought about that a lot and tried to, talk to him as much as possible and take
Mhm.
different approaches and then collaborate and share. And so he did pretty well, but it was very difficult to extract some of that information from him.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, okay, interesting. So what what was the was there a moment that felt like, "Okay, we're getting back to normal?"
I don't
Quote, unquote, "normal," I suppose, huh?
Yeah, right. That's another one of my favorite words.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the things that Marie mentioned, like him wanting to be around family and friends. Like I think going through a scenario like that, an easy outcome is to hide in a shell and not be around people and
Mhm.
not socialize and not communicate with people. But he wanted to do a lot of those things. He wanted to be around his friends. He wanted to go to school. We told him, we were
Mhm.
like, hey, you can go to school half day for the
Mhm.
rest of the school year.
Yeah.
From January to June, you can go half day if you want.
Mm.
Nope. I want to go whole day. I want to be around my friends.
Cool.
So like that kind of stuff, like that helped us, right? That
Yeah, I
helped
mean,
us.
and it's kind of like at the beginning, you said like what helps you, rolling forward, and it's him. He wanted to go all day.
Right. Him giving indicators that he was okay helped
Mm.
us be okay,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah.
Because I mean, you always worry, right? You over
Sure.
worry, and I don't want Max to worry. I'll do all the worrying he needs to ever do in his life, right?
Yeah.
And so as soon as he gave indications that he was, navigating back towards that steady state or that normalcy, it helped us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when was that? Man, I don't
I don't know.
know.
I just
Sorry.
remember, we took
It's all a blur, I'm
so
sure.
that May we took a vacation. We hadn't taken a vacation in a long time. We had taken a vacation to Florida at the end of May. It was actually Empower Fest put on by Hanger, and we had gone and they had actually had a rotation plasty track, and I think our boys were Max was the only kid there, but we had gone and it was a beach vacation. Max's favorite place to be is the beach. And so, that kind of felt like the first time of normalcy for us because a couple of reasons. One, it was the beach, Max's favorite place. It was our first family vacation in a while, but also, Max actually went in the ocean with his prosthetic.
Mm.
So we met a gentleman there, who was diagnosed, with osteosarcoma around the same age as Max. And he, is a prosthetist. And he actually kind of, gave us a lot of really great information, but he just really told us to, like, let Max be Max as a 10-year-old. Like, he can go in the water with it, he can go off the diving board with it, like, you could always clean his prosthetic. I think, one of the things when Max got his prosthetic, was there was a lot of limitations on it with him having a prosthetic, and so, Max swam out to the sandbar. Yeah, it's a lot of work when Max goes into the ocean with it, there's a lot of cleaning, but, like,
Yeah.
I think when we met Steve, he is just, like, he's a 10-year-old, like, he's gonna wanna go off the diving board, he's gonna wanna go in the water with it, so, I think just meeting Steve and, it kind of opened up, we met Janet there, we just we it opened up a lot for at least me and, like, what Max can do with his prosthetic, and he doesn't have, like, life limitations, like, not that he really would, anyways, but there's just, like, a lot of openings for him and a lot of things that I thought maybe he would have restrictions on. So that was, like, kind of like we just had a great time as a family there, and it was the first time that we really got to get away.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Like, it's one thing to read about, what your child's life will be in the future after they make it through, an amputation or whatever, right? It's
Mhm.
another thing to like hear a doctor tell you about it. But to meet people, like this gentleman, had rotationplasty about the same age as Max, 10 or 12, I think he was, and he was in his 50s.
Oh, cool.
So this
Yeah.
guy had had a whole life, right, with
Mm.
He
with
had
with this type of
he had
amputation.
kids, he had played football in high school.
So to
Yeah.
see him and talk to him, right? I mean, that was a huge amount of relief. It's
Mm.
like, wow, like here is someone in the flesh and blood that has done it, right? They've been
Mhm.
through it. We had a bunch of good conversations with him. Like this, I don't know how it works for all disabilities, but I think the conversation was framed for like amputees and then rotation plasty, right? And I think this is pretty prevalent in the amputee community where some folks are very adamant about participating in sports with able-bodied people
Mhm.
and not participating in adaptive sports.
Yeah.
And so that's again like something I had at 42 years old, I'd never thought about. I'd never had to think about it,
Yeah.
right? So we're that's one of the interesting things about Max. I'm curious to see how it all pans out, right?
Mhm.
So he's taken an affinity to wheelchair tennis and wheelchair basketball, right?
Mhm.
Um, he played soccer, rec soccer with able-bodied kids this last spring and last fall.
Cool.
Like, so, like, where's he gonna shake out? And you meet other folks in the amputee community and in the rotation plastic community, and they want every accommodation available,
Mhm.
right? And that's just what it is, right? People just have different perspectives and different approaches to the many different scenarios. So uh, I'm curious how Max shakes out in all of this,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
so far it's been kind of a mix,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's something I think about. And it was a good conversation with those folks we had in Florida, right? Going on that vacation, seeing folks and
Mhm.
seeing people's differing opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, the different opinions, just that I've had on this podcast. I'm actually shattering some of my own stereotypes, on disability, even though I've been disabled my entire life, and it's like, these aren't conversations that are generally, like, had without a structured podcast, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's we have 20 minutes. And so I wanted to get into wheelchair sports a little bit as
Yeah.
well. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to that about rotation plasty or anything? Oh, one thing is I did ask you for advice, like working together as parents.
Yeah.
If somebody's going through this, a parent, somebody just in general is going through this, What general advice do you have about it?
I know what I would say. I would say
Go ahead.
don't, I advocate for your child.
Mm,
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help
mhm.
from anyone.
Yeah.
And just always be prepared. You know, when Max, this is might be totally trivial, but when Max popped his first fever, we were not prepared at all.
Mm,
Like he popped his fever, and we were running around with our heads chopped off. And Josh took him to the hospital. Um, yeah, just always be prepared. Have your bag packed to walk out that door. Uh, so yeah, so those would be my 3 things. But just when you ask for help, don't, get that meal train ready. Yeah, if someone says, "Can I drop a meal off?" Yes.
mhm.
Yeah, we aren't a family that typically asks for help,
Mhm.
and so
That was big.
that was something we needed to overcome quickly, right? There
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
much thinking about it. You just got to take as much help as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my advice would be to revive a previous topic is be curious,
Yeah.
right? So like, um, I didn't know what the amputee community or the disability community was like. And
Mhm.
so I had to be curious, right? You
Yeah.
have to ask questions, you have to network, you have to talk to people, find someone in the community, find another child or family that is doing something that you think your child would be interested in, right?
Mhm.
I had never thought of wheelchair tennis or wheelchair basketball, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't know if Max would be interested in not in it or not. So just finding those things, let alone participating in those things, like took some curiosity.
Yeah.
Took some curiosity from Marie and I, and took some curiosity from Max. So keep that curious, open mind.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely keep an open mind because you never know what they're gonna love.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's been the importance of adaptive sports for Max?
I think I think friendship for him
Mm,
has been a big one. Um, Henry has been pretty influential, like, for tennis.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the big things that the, oncologist, particularly, with amputation is just make sure he stays active,
Mhm.
make sure he has an active lifestyle,
Mm.
for his, prosthetic. So, that he's involved in wheelchair tennis, and, he met Henry,
Mhm.
um, which I didn't know this actually until the other day that, Josh was telling me that the first time that Max went to wheelchair tennis, Jake was there and just happened to have a wheelchair that Max could use,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I didn't know, and so then he met Jake the first time, which I knew that Jake, when, we went to the indoor facility last winter, Jake was there, playing tennis with him, but then, Henry, kind of, kept talking to him about wheelchair basketball,
Mhm.
but, in the wheelchair basketball, there are kids, his age there,
Mhm.
so that's what I think he really loves,
Yeah.
is just the kids his age,
Mhm.
is what's important to him, and also the competitiveness in him really comes out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important. Adaptive sports are important for those reasons, right? I think you described them well, right? Like, it's keeping him active,
Mhm.
it's meeting friends, being social, right? It's
Mhm.
and some of it is pushing him outside of his boundaries. It's easy to stay home and play video games,
Yeah.
right? It's real easy. It's
Mhm.
not easy to wake up at 6 a.m. so you can make your 8 a.m. basketball game in Louisville, Kentucky,
Yeah.
right? And he's had to do that.
Mhm.
It's not easy to go play tennis at 8 p.m., a 30-minute drive away on a Thursday night. But you know
Mhm.
what? Hey, y- you know, once you get there, you're going to love it.
And
Mm,
he's excited to go.
So
yeah.
so
Yeah.
get it is well, let's get in the car and go. And then like this is good from that athletic active lifestyle thing, but it's also good, you know, it's a good life lesson,
Yeah.
right? Because at some point he's not going to live in our house and he's not going to have our help
Mhm.
and he's going to be on his own and
Mhm.
and he needs to learn some of these life skills that hey, Like if you get motivated, if you stick to a schedule, if you push yourself when you're comfortable on the couch to go show up at tennis, you're gonna have fun, right?
Mhm.
Right? So it's big from all those things, right? The community part is huge, right?
Yeah.
Meeting friends, meeting other people with disabilities, I think is huge for him.
Mhm.
After Max had his surgery, I found an organization in town and Top Soccer,
Yeah.
and I took him to Top Soccer, and he went, and 5 minutes into it, he's like, "Let's go." Like,
Mhm.
no way, dude. Like, you got to stay. We signed up for this. I'll check in with you at
Mhm.
15 minutes. 15 minutes. He's like, absolutely got to go. And so we get in the car and I say, hey, man, like, what's going on? I don't want to talk about it.
Mm.
Okay. We're going to have this conversation because I'm your parent and I need to know what the problem was so I don't put you in future situations like that make you uncomfortable. It's clear that you are uncomfortable or upset about something.
Mhm.
And his response was, nobody there looks like me. There were
Mm.
no other amputees there, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so uh, that kind of like put us in a position where like we need to find something else, right?
Mm.
And so back to being curious, we had to be curious and go look for what the other options in adaptive sports were because
Mhm.
I didn't know any better. I thought that was going to be it.
Mhm.
Top Soccer serves the disabled community on the soccer front.
Mhm.
That's it. We're going to take Max and he's going to play soccer and it's going to be awesome. It just
Mhm.
wasn't the case.
Mm.
Right. So, yeah. So finding those other adaptive sports was huge.
Yeah. That that's awesome. I had my finger crossed. I
Mhm.
lost it, I
Yeah.
think. But so the oh man, I really wish it was a great question, guys. No, but as far as the sports that Max plays, um, w- I, I've always advocated for how quickly somebody should get. Oh, that this is it. Um, how quickly somebody should get into to adaptive sports after their injury. Like
Mm.
they should do it ASAP,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, when you were meeting with doctors, going through physical therapy, did anybody mention the bridge or Cincinnati Tennis Foundation or anything like that?
So,
That's
so by happenstance,
Okay.
I'm convinced by happenstance. So Max's physical therapist, and maybe not, right? Maybe this organically
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
happens, but uh, Max's physical therapist uh, uh, knew Danny
Yeah.
from
From
college,
graduate school.
from
Yep.
graduate school.
Yeah.
So, like, when we're going taking Max to physical therapy, she, they get to know you. Quite, hey, what do you do? What do you like to do? And Max had mentioned sports,
Mm.
and she's like, oh, I have a good friend who runs this, foundation in Cincinnati for adaptive sports. I'll
Mhm.
have to get you hooked up with him, right?
Yeah.
And this was really early in the process, right? This is when Max was still doing chemo. He started physical therapy.
Sure.
And so once he finished is when, like I had mentioned earlier, I had been searching around, found the bridge, messaged Danny, and Danny called me. We went
Mhm.
back to physical therapy and I was like, hey, I talked to this Danny guy. And
Mhm.
Max's physical therapist is like, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy that I know that I wanted to introduce you to.
Yeah.
So like,
Okay.
um, other than that,
Mm-mm.
there was no mention of adaptive sports
Yeah.
or the bridge or CTF or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's I mean, Danny, I believe, worked with children's for
Yep.
a
Yeah.
while,
Yep.
and,
Mhm.
Be Well is through children's
Yeah.
as
Yep.
well, so there is, I think, a pretty good community in Cincinnati, to help refer people to different people, but, being fairly new, it was
Yeah.
just a random
Yeah.
curiosity. I think there's still an opportunity there
Yes.
to say, "Hey, you gotta get your kid into this."
I don't know how that happens because I don't think like the orthopedic department would refer people I
Yeah.
mean, maybe they do, but I would I don't know. I'm speculating, but I would have to imagine that they would be apprehensive to refer people to an outside organization, but
Yeah.
maybe they would. I mean, maybe this is something that, the communications department, that the public communications part of the hospital, they could do. Danny would
Mhm.
probably know because he was part of the
Yeah.
medical system,
Yeah.
right? He would probably know best, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like there is an opportunity there because I feel like we should have heard that through our medical professionals, not just a college buddy of somebody. If Max didn't have that same physical therapist, we probably don't hear about Danny unless I find him on my own,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
We did because
And
that
and and that's so crazy
it
to me,
is.
and, like, again, like, thinking about all the people I've had on that it took years and years to get into adaptive sports
Yeah.
before they were and again, it was a while ago as well, but yeah, I don't know, like, if I could help change that, that'd be awesome. I'd love to do that because wheelchair sports made such a big
Mhm.
impact on my life, and I know how much of an impact it's made on other people's
Yeah.
lives as well. So,
Mhm.
okay, we have 8 minutes. Believe it or not, until two. So that's kind of crazy. Let a lot of so I do a disability segment at the very end, which is like more of a like thought provoking, like people staring and stuff like that. And we had a lot of those discussions already. The the other question that I have, let me look through my list of questions. Um, what's I think I'll ask this question and then we can get to a few closing questions. But what's something that surprised you both about seeing the disabled community and being in it with Max, if anything?
I I think I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but excuse me. How welcoming and cool and kind most people are, right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's a lot of camaraderie.
Mhm.
If I'm a Reds fan, I can find other Reds fans and we can find that common ground, right?
Mhm.
Um, Anybody and everybody can find themselves in the disability community. It does
Mhm.
not discriminate age, size, color, whatever, right? Um, and so I was curious how that was going to be, right? What kind of people are we going to meet in the disability community, right? It's my child, so I have to be on guard. I have to be protective. That's just what we have to do for our children. So that was kind of in the back of the mind. You like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that the community is so awesome and kind and caring and welcoming. Like there are
Mhm.
so many people that have been so nice to Max for no reason other than they're also in the disability community.
Mm.
Right? Max played in a tennis tournament, right? That tennis tournament last fall or whatever. There are
Mhm.
people who flew in from Texas that have never seen Max before in their life. They don't know his story, don't know anything about him, who could not be kinder or nicer or more amped up
Mm.
about Max. Like
Mm.
that's like that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um, I don't know if it's surprising. I don't wanna use the surprising, but just like the amazing stories of everybody's background. I
Mm.
think it is pretty phenomenal. Everybody in the community, just has an amazing story or an amazing background of why they're there. And I just think getting to know the families has been great, and like Josh said, like, the support that everybody provides each other. Um, and that just goes how deep of the friendships that I think Max has made and that Max could potentially have forever or for a lifetime as long as he wants to play. Um, and just sometimes, with a child with a disability, sometimes you just feel like you're alone. And like, since we've, come into this community, you just meet those parents and you know that you're not alone and you have somebody to talk to.
Yeah,
So I think that also has made a huge impact on me as well.
sure.
Sometimes at basketball practice, I can just sit there and talk to a parent and, just kind of like about nothing. And you're just like, okay, we're on the same page, but even about a lot. So
Mhm.
I think that's been great.
What in few closing questions, what do you hope parents or anyone watching this takes away from this today?
I'd say um, life goes on one day at a time.
Mm,
I mean, as cliche as that is, I feel like it's a total cliche, but you still have to get up. You still have to go forward. Um,
yeah,
it is, you just I don't know.
No, I think be forward thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught in the weeds. It's easy
yeah,
to get hyper focused on things that drag you down. That's
mhm,
part of it, right? Everybody has a journey. Everybody has their difficulties, and you just have to be forward thinking, looking
mhm,
ahead, being curious,
yeah,
finding
yeah,
those things that are interesting, talking to people.
mhm,
Um, yeah.
Stay positive.
yeah. That's a great answer. So I know Marie, you said you don't do much socials, but do you, if
At all.
someone wanted to find you, do you want to put your socials out there? It's up to you guys.
I mean, I signed up for a Facebook account to join the Rotationplasty group. Like,
Okay.
I don't really use social
I
media.
don't have
Okay.
any at all.
So I will not be sharing your socials.
I know.
That's completely okay. Um, and then, yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It's I think this is a unique story that's going to be out there for other people to watch, and I really hope th- someone might be going through this and we'll learn from you all.
Mhm.
And by the way, if someone does have somebody that's going through something like this, you all can reach out to me, and
Yeah,
I'm
for
I'm
sure.
sure Marie and Josh would be happy to help out and advise or whatever. Give you some sort of connections as well. So yeah, anyway, I really appreciate this. I hope it increases awareness for what happened to Max and the steps that can be taken and all that. So I just want to say thank you all so much for coming on. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been
Yeah.
good.
Um anything else before we go? It's 1:59.
Perfect timing.
It's amazing. I don't think so. I think we
Okay.
covered a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Rolling Forward podcast. Please let us know whatever questions you have in the comments. I'm happy to relay the questions to Marie and Josh if I don't know the answer. I'd like to hear what keeps you rolling forward or my next T-shirt idea. The T-shirt that I'm wearing today is "Rolling with the Punches." It's a guy in a wheelchair hitting a boxing bag, saying, and the words are "Rolling with the Punches." You can get this shirt at rollingforward.printful.me. It's one of my created shirts. And if you've got a story worth sharing, reach out. You might be the next person on my podcast. So until next time, everybody, thank you and keep rolling forward.